Good morning, everybody. Um, gosh, I picked the right day to be late. I mean, I was gonna be late, so I was gonna fast forward it. They were out on the viewing. When is that lighting? Oh, there we go. Maybe if I turn on the lights. It's like, did I mess up? Okay. Yeah, they were out on the viewing. So hold on a second. Let me I have some things we could watch if because I do want to be like at least an hour late of when they start because I want to be able to fast forward, guys. I want to be able to fast forward all of the stuff. I think I needed. That's why I put it for 10:30 because I was thinking I was going to need like an hour and a half to be able to fast forward because they stop so much. But hold on, let me bring up Long Crime. We could watch the first part and then, or we could just wait to watch the first part and then watch it all together when they come back. I don't even think they're back yet. Hold on a second. If they're not back yet, I saw that Boston has a interview I have not seen with Lauren, Karen, and Alan. We could always watch that. Yeah, they're not back yet. It looks like they're probably gonna be back soon, maybe. Yeah, they're not back yet. Okay, so we can watch the first part so you know what's going on. And then, I'll pause it and then see if they're back, but if even if they're back, I might wanna wait and maybe watch a part of the interview, so therefore we have a little bit of wiggle room to fast forward, because that was the whole purpose, so we could fast forward through everything. Because I actually got to bed early last night, so it wasn't like I didn't technically need the extra sleep, but I think I'm gonna try to do it like this. Okay. How's everybody doing, though? Hey, Hope. Hopa G, Laura. Yeah, I could do that too. Let's first do the first part of the thing. You know what I'm saying? So everybody knows what's going on, and then I'll play the in between stuff. So let's play the long crime. They came on this morning and they explained what they were doing. So I'm going to play that first. Is that okay? And then I'll stop, and then we could play some little in between stuff, just so people could be kind of up to speed on if people don't know what's going on, so they know where everybody's at. Okay, so let me share my screen. How is everybody doing though? Thank you, Cassie. Hi, Laura. Yeah, I'll definitely play that. Will you email me the channel and what you're talking about? Well, in the timestamp, because now that I went live, oh, the stuff's still up 10 minutes. Okay. Sometimes when I go live, the previous chat disappears, but it's still up there. So I could 10 minutes in. But can you maybe email me? Because sometimes I have trouble finding channels. Sometimes it doesn't. You guys probably did you guys already watch the first part? Because I really didn't. I just kinda, like, screened through just to see what the day was gonna bring, like, who I was gonna skim through just to see what witnesses, and so I didn't really watch it, I just got an idea what was going on. So, but I feel like you guys did you guys not watch it, or could you not help yourself? Uh, oh, wait, hold on, let me make sure I shared my screen or shared my audio. It's my little OCD. I gotta check it twice. Just like Santa Claus. Checks his list twice. Better find out if we're not. Oh my god. Anyway, okay. Um, okay, so this is the beginning. So this is this morning, right? We can fast forward. Just see everybody come in and watch him come in. There's his family, John's. Oh, his yeah. Fast forward, and if you guys are wondering, it's not glitching on this fast. These people come in, so you just.
Why the fuck can't they sit there?
There they are.
You're going in right now? Yeah, just wait till they're in. Appreciate it, thank you.
There's your boyfriend, Laura. He is cute. He really is. I like a beard on a man. I mean, like that, like facial hair. Oh, let me take that off. So. So, question. Do you think Karen has how many, like what they say, this could be 8 weeks, 12 weeks, maybe? How long is this trial? Do you think she has like 60 different outfits she wears, or does she ever wear the same outfit twice? I'm not that observant when it comes to clothes a lot of the times. I mean, I guess it just depends. I don't think I would notice, but did anybody notice like last year? I don't know. I'm just curious. She seemed like the type that like wants to present herself really nice. So I don't know. There'd be a lot of different nice outfits to wear. I mean, to have though, right? I was just watching them. I was just watching them as I was eating my breakfast. So I had watched their first one of Karen and Jen McCabe a couple weeks ago, and I was just watching their new one of Karen, and that's what reminded me of that interview. So I was like, man, we could watch that interview. I didn't get to watch it all, but I know their first one. It seemed like they kind of were torn. They were going back and forth, but it almost seemed more towards deception. But and also Jen McCabe wasn't that much deception. I mean, some stuff, but I don't take that stuff as, like I said, I haven't watched all of the new one. And they said that one's better because it's like a interview. It's not clips. So they have like a better look at her. So I have to still finish that. But I like using it as a tool, but I never let it make up my mind on anything. Like if I have an opposite opinion, I'm not going to let it change it, you know? But yeah, I have to finish that. Okay, so let me fast forward it. Oh, they're doing yard work, but don't worry, I'll mute it whenever they start. It's the only thing with summer or spring during the day. Somebody out here always is doing yard work. I can never like do videos, like edit videos if I. It's so annoying. You should see me. Sometimes I have to like try to do it in between. I'll be like, talk, stop. They're coming. They started again, and then like talk. And if I'm like editing a pre-record, I hate it. Can you guys even hear that or no? On pre-records, the mic picks up more stuff than on lives for some reason. I don't know why. Sorry, I'm just fast forwarding it till they got a light now. So they could alternate between the light and the fan. Maybe they always had the light.
You are unmuted.
Here we go.
Please be seated. Court is in session.
You can't hear
Good
it?
morning.
Oh.
Before the court is Commonwealth versus Karen
Okay.
Reed, 22 CR 117. The parties are present, the jury is not present, the matter is on for trial.
Thank you. So, good morning. I heard the council wanted to see me about something.
Yes, please.
All right, why don't you come on over to Sidebar?
Never mind. I was muted it. I was getting all ready to relax and drink my coffee, but nope, should have figured. And what about the guys? Do you think Alan has I mean, that'd be a lot of suits, and suits all look so similar. There's no way you could have like that many different colors. Even if he did wear a different suit, we probably wouldn't even be able to tell. Um, that's so crazy though. Are they really doing this trial pro bono? Like I even respect them so much more hearing that. Because they are high paid lawyers, at least Alan is. I mean, they're giving up a lot of money. I know they're getting a lot of recognition for this, but still, I don't think they needed it. I mean, he was, you know what I'm saying? That's pretty cool that they're doing that, if that's true. Oh, this is why I could fast forward it. Duh, this is the whole point. Oh my God, I'm silly. That's why I started late so I could fast forward it. Sorry, guys. Remind me if I'm just sitting here forgetting. Remind me. Please. I almost just forgot. Sorry, guys. You know what? I should turn my thing up on 10 seconds, do you think? I don't know. I'm debating. Sometimes, you know how you could switch this where it skips to like 10 seconds across? Let me see. I don't know where that's at actually right now, but oh well. Where is that in your set? I think that's in your YouTube settings. I think I'd have to, oh shoot. Why did I do that? Sorry. I'll just go like this.
Please be seated. Court is in session.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, before the court is Commonwealth versus Karen Reed, 22 CR 117. The parties are present, the jury is not present, the matter is on for trial.
Thank you. So, good morning. I heard the council wanted to see me about something.
Yes, please.
All right, why don't you come on over to Sidebar?
Sorry, I thought I already had that fast forward past that. Sorry, guys. I'll get the hang of it. My aunt's here to watch my girl look good. She just got here. I could hear her. So okay, you guys, sorry if I don't know this already. Where is John's dad? Where's John's dad at? That can't be his dad right there to the right, left of her, or it'd be her right. I don't know. I guess I don't know what he looks like. Is that? He looks younger than her. He looks too young. That guy looks too young to be her husband. I'm gonna look it up. Hold on. I'll fast forward, sorry. That's why there's barely anybody in the court, because they're all probably ready to go to the viewing. I'm gonna try to look that. Oh, hey, Ashley. I'm gonna try to look that up.
You absolutely did not come.
My YouTube settings to skip it forward and see if I can switch it. Hold on. It's gotta be there. I don't know if you guys want me to fast forward through like this. They're about to start, so I almost just want to. I like kind of looking at reactions. I want to look up John's dad, though. This is confusing me.
your attention, Ray.
On my YouTube setting, it does say 10
Hear ye,
seconds.
hear ye, hear ye. All persons having anything to do before the Honorable
Yeah.
Beverly Cannoli, the Justice of the Superior Court, holding in Dedham within and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is in session. Please be seated.
For the record, before the court is Commonwealth versus Karen Reed, 22 CR 117. The parties are present. Our 18 jurors are present. The matter is on for trial.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Good morning again, counsel. Good morning again, Ms. Reed.
Good morning, jurors. When we leave you out there, we're very much aware that we're leaving you in another room waiting, but we were working this morning to help streamline things and we were successful, so we do appreciate your patience. I do have to ask you those questions. Were you all able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday?
Yes.
Everyone nodded affirmatively or said yes. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did any of you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left yesterday?
No.
Thank you. Everyone said no. All right, folks, as you know, this morning we are going on a view. And a view is simply, we're going to a place that you've heard about and that you will continue to hear about during the course of the trial. The purpose of the view is to help you better understand the evidence, which you'll hear during the course of the trial, and to help you appreciate the location and its surroundings. So the view that we're going on is part of the case, and it means that the observations that you make there can be used and considered by you in your deliberations on this case in reaching a verdict. So we're going to, you've heard, 34 Fairview Road in Canton. The lawyers and I will accompany you. For the Commonwealth, we'll be accompanied by Attorney Brennan, and ADA Lally, ADA Schillinger, and for the defense, Attorney Yannetti and Attorney Little. The lawyers will have the opportunity, Mr. Yannetti and Mr. Brennan, have the opportunity to point out various things that they may want you to direct your attention to. Otherwise, there's no conversation between the lawyers and the jurors. So it's simply in a few minutes, you'll hear a little bit from each Mr. Brennan and Mr. Yannetti about what they want you to look at. And then when we get there, they'll direct you, look in this direction. They won't be able to testify to you, but they'll direct you in what they want you to look at. While you're in the view, you're not to take any notes, you're not to take any pictures, you're not to conduct any independent investigation at all during the view or any time during the trial. You're not to return to this scene or ask anybody to go back there for you. Today's your chance. You'll see photographs during the course of the trial, I bet, but today's your chance to really look at everything. So the best way to summarize a view is that your job is to simply stop and look. It's really no more complicated than that. So your responsibility is to see the place, observe it carefully, and to remember what you see. Now, during the trip to and from the view, and while at the view, you're not to discuss this case or anything about it with other jurors. We'll be accompanied by court officers who will direct you, and the court officers are there for all of us. So you'll be under their supervision until you're returned back here. So that's basically it. We'll be leaving in a few minutes, but first, before Madam Clerk swears the court officers in, Mr. Brennan, do you want to make a view opening?
May I?
Please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As Her Honor explained to you, we're going to go to 34 Fairview Road. We have some exhibits that are already in evidence you haven't had a long time to look at them, study them. But essentially, we're going to go to 34 Fairview Row. I ask you to pay attention to the street, the front yard of the home. And you'll see to the left side of the front yard in the corner, there'll be a car. It's the Lexus that we've spoken about, the defendant's Lexus. And you'll also see a flagpole and a fire hydrant. And so I'd ask you to take a look from different vantage points. Take a look from that area where the flagpole is, from where the fire hydrant is. And you'll see on the street before the grass is a little firm concrete that comes up a little bit. I'd ask you just to note that when you go there. One thing I'd suggest is April 25th, 2025, not January 22nd, 2022. So the weather will be very different. The temperature will be different. The conditions will be different. We're going to go there probably at 10 o'clock. It won't be the same visibility. It won't be the same elements and the same weather. So keep that in mind when you're looking around. When you look at the Lexus, there's a couple things I'd ask you to look at. There is some evidence already in of photographs of the right rear tail light. When you look at that tail light, it will be different than the photograph that is in evidence. It has been removed, so it will appear differently, and you'll later get testimony explaining that process. Also, I'd ask you to make a note on the Lexus about the height of the bumper. I'd ask you to make note of the height of the right rear tail light. And I'd also ask you to take note of, on the top of the hatchback, there is a project tree. I'd ask you to look at that as well. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Ms. Tianetti?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. As I told you at the start of the trial, my name is David Yannetti. I have an office in Boston and in Dedham. And on behalf of my co-counsel, we will be accompanying you on the view that you will take today. Although the view is not evidence, I suggest to you that you will find it to be helpful, important, even necessary as you later do your investigation of this case within the four walls of this courtroom. You've already received in evidence, some photos and videos, but there is no substitute for your own two eyes. As we all know, photos and videos sometimes can be misleading in terms of relative distances, depending upon the perspective from which the photo is taken. But your eyes are the best computer that you could bring to the view. When we get to 34 Fairview, we will be pointing out certain things that we'd like you to observe. The house, the second floor window to that house, the three front doors in the front of the house, the driveway, the street, the front lawn, and the flagpole. And we'll be asking you specifically to consider the distance between that second floor front window and the front lawn. The distance between the front doors to the house and that front lawn. The distance between the driveway to the front lawn. And we'll be asking you to take a good look at that Lexus. To stand next to it. To size it up, to take it in. You were all selected as jurors because the parties entrusted that you would do a proper investigation of this case within this courtroom. On behalf of Ms. Reed, we have every confidence that you will do a proper investigation. Thank you.
All right, jurors, I have to make something very clear. So the purpose of this view is to help you better to understand the evidence that you'll hear during the trial and to help you appreciate the location and its surroundings. The view you'll take is part of this case.
The observations that you make while on the view may be used and considered by you in your deliberations in reaching a verdict. So at the end of the trial, when I explain to you what is evidence and what is not, I'll remind you that your observations on this view can be used by you in your deliberations. Also, while you're in the view, the same way you're not to take any notes or photographs, you're not to conduct any investigation on this case. You really are simply to stop and look, okay? Those are the instructions. We will see you in a few minutes. All right, thank you. Oh, sorry, Madam Clerk has to swear in the court officers.
You could all raise your right hand, please. Do each of you solemnly swear that you will take the jury upon the premises in question and there suffer them to view the same or any property, place, or thing bearing upon the issue in the trial as the parties may think necessary? That you will not permit the parties to enter into a debate in the hearing of the jury, nor any person to speak to them unless it be the attorneys of record, then only to point out such places or things as they may deem expedient for the determination of the issues. That you'll keep the jury together until they shall return to court, unless the court shall otherwise order, so help you God. Thank you.
All right, thank
All
you.
rise, please. Jurors, follow me.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how far, see where they're at real quick, and then to kind of decide what we could watch while we're waiting. Let me just see if they are back yet. They're not even back yet. They're not even back yet. They might have just got back because they're back in the fan. But I wanted to get like an hour ahead. So maybe at least a half hour ahead. So what I'm going to do is, you guys want to watch that interview with Karen? Has anybody watched it? That I haven't watched it yet. Boston. It's called One-on-One, and it looks like Alan's sitting next to her. Do you guys want to watch that? Because they're not even back from the viewing yet. And they've already been gone. I mean, supposed to start at 9, so they've already been gone in over an hour or two. Let me see how long. They've been gone for an hour and a half so far. Okay, so let's watch the interview, and I bet you by the time the interview's done, they should be back. We might not be able to get ahead of it, but oh well, tomorrow we can. Okay, so let me put this over on my other screen, and I will bring up that interview and watch that together. I still have those other things that I wanted to watch yesterday with you too. So, I mean, we could still watch a few different things waiting for them. And here's the thing. Don't worry, guys. We'll still catch up. Even if we started an hour and a half late, well, I don't know how they're going to do it actually, because since the half of the day is already over, they might already do lunch while they're out or something. So let's start like a half hour after they start. But we'll still catch up to them. You know what I'm saying? Even if we're an hour, I bet you we'd still catch up to them. On a normal day, hour and a half, we would definitely still catch up to them. But since they are out, I don't know how they're going to do breaks. They might skip some of them and stuff. I don't know. Okay, so let me find my history because I was just watching that. What was it? Boston. Their interview. Okay, here it is. It's called One-on-One interview. Let's watch her. How many? Put a 1 if you have watched this already, and a 2 if you haven't. This one with Boston 25 is One-on-One. Oh, whoa! This isn't new. This is from 2 months ago. Wow, I never even seen it. Okay, maybe a lot of you guys have seen it then. All right, so I'm gonna pull it up.
Why do you who's a closure? We invited you here. But of course, it is unusual for someone who's accused of murder to do.
Yes, wait real quick. I watched the jurors' interviews. What part are you talking about? I don't believe though. There's a few when I was watching them. There's one guy in particular. He said something that made me think that he definitely knew about it before, which I don't care. I wouldn't even be mad because that case is so huge, it would almost be impossible to find people that never heard of anything. So I wouldn't be mad if somebody just pretended they did. I don't know. I mean, I know they shouldn't, but the one guy, when they were interviewing him, he said something like, she had nothing to lose, because they asked something like, this is Lori Daybell. They asked something like, do you think it was a mistake that she represented herself? And he said something like, well, she had nothing to lose. Well, she doesn't have nothing to lose because she's already doing life for the other case. But if he didn't know about that, she does have a lot to lose. She has her life to lose if he didn't know that she already got life. But then they asked him, you don't know anything about it? No, but I caught that. And I'm sorry, you would not say that about somebody that, if you thought this was their only trial, they have their whole life to lose. So I think he definitely knew about it. What are you talking about? Chief, what are you talking about? Well, no, Chief. They did say when they walked out of court, they all knew by that time, because they said, I was a little bit confused too. They already knew after. So they said that, I don't know why, I was kind of surprised that, so right after, I guess they gave the verdict and then they missed and went back to the jury room. I guess somebody must have told them that, okay, look up now, you'll be able to see who she is. And everybody had looked it up before they walked out. They knew, they were looking into it. So they had known when they walked out. So that's why they're interviewing them. For some reason, I didn't know they would do that. Like after they already gave the thing, then they talked, somebody told them to, like, I don't know if it was the judge, I don't know who's the one told them, like, now you could go look it up. So when they walked out and they all got interviewed, they had already known real quick. They just, not that much, they probably only had like, what, 15 minutes or whatever, however quick that was, that they were aware. So I think is that what you're talking about? Because when they walked out and did the interview, they all knew by then, because somebody told them after. But what I'm saying is that guy, when he was interviewed, yeah, he already knew, but they were asking like how he felt at the time when he was watching it. And he's like, well, no, she didn't have nothing to lose. So that if you were really feeling that way at the time, then, I mean, maybe it was because he knew afterwards, but I don't know. I just feel like some of them knew. Yeah, because I watched them interview and I was like, wait, how do they already know about this? And then she said that one girl with the short hair, what was her name? Tosh or something. She said how she didn't give very much specifics, but she said basically after, I couldn't tell where they were, but after they gave the verdict, somehow they said, okay, do you know who she is? Now you guys can look it up. And they kind of like told them or something. And then I don't know if they had their phones or somebody told them or they were able to look it up, but they were all talking about it after, she said, like right after, before they walked out. Yeah. Can you imagine? But I still think, I find it hard to believe that nobody knew. I mean, some might not have. I almost believe that short hair girl, because she said she just moved here. I almost believe, I mean, I'm sure some of them don't, but I don't know. That case is too big. And even with this case, they even said, Karen Reed, they even were going to accept people for knowing, because sometimes you can't find a jury that it doesn't know anything. But I don't know. But yeah, I do know that though, Chief, because I was a little confused at first, and then she said it, that girl with the short hair. I was watching Hidden. It was before Nate Eaton ended up publishing his on his channel afterwards, but Hidden Lauren, she was doing it live, and I was watching it. Okay, so
this interview or others, why do you want to speak to the people of Massachusetts and beyond?
I have nothing to hide. My life is in the balance, and it shouldn't be. And I believe sunlight is the best disinfectant, and that's been our team motto since inception. I think the more I've seen, the more information the public has, the more they understand what we already know.
And when we talk about the public, there's so much going on in the atmosphere of this case. How much of that do you pay attention to?
I pay attention a little bit to everything. The parts of the public that seem a little dirtier than others, I have close friends and people I trust that filter through it, because there are threads of important information in every channel of the public, on social media, just out and about in Norfolk County or in Suffolk, through our emails. So what I can't manage or don't want to manage, we have a lot of it covered from people that we trust and people who support us.
People said some pretty nasty things about you online. Do you read that? Do you process that?
I read some of it. I don't take it to heart, but it's bothersome. But I understand why it is. There are bad, evil, nefarious players in this. There are people who are adverse to other people in this whole case. People who support me, and I've known my whole life, as does everyone, that there's not a lot of good in some people, and it doesn't drag me down in any way. It makes me feel like we're covering ground here. The nastier it gets, the more I know that we're making an impact to people that have a lot to worry about. 3
years have now passed since John's death. How much do you think about him with everything else that is going on?
I think about him in terms of his final days, his final weeks. I mean, we have his cell phone, which a cell phone to anyone is like a diary, and it tracks everything you've done. And I've gone over and over his final movements, his heart rate, his injuries, the time that he did everything that day and the days leading up to it. But I've said this to other people. The time that I spent with John, 2 years, it's now been 3 since he's gone, since he was killed. And I'm a year beyond. I've eclipsed the time that I spent with him. And I have very mixed feelings, when I look back on John, because I see a lot of poor decisions that were all precursors to his death and to this nightmare that I'm living. It's
poor decisions by whom?
By both of us. Just drinking, being around the wrong people is chief among them. Wrong people for the weeks leading up. They wouldn't have been people I would have chosen on my own to be around.
Have you been able to start a new social life, a new dating life since this?
No, I have my friends that were always in my life. I'm closer to them than ever. And it's been kind of a bittersweet silver lining is I don't know that I ever would have known my friends and family had this in them to be there for me in this way. So I feel very fortunate. And I've met so many new people. And that's enough of a life for me right now is, we go out for dinner just to get out, and we end up just kind of hungered down over a table discussing the case. And I value their input, and I'm content with my social life, even though it's really just socializing about the case.
How big is Karen Reed's inner circle?
My inner circle, well, half of it's my attorneys, who we just talk so much. There's always so much ground to cover, and we can't wait until trial starts to really begin strategizing or going through the details. We do a little bit every day.
Do a lot every day.
We do I should say we do a little bit in proportion to the total task at hand, but we cover a lot of hours every day. I probably talk to Alan and Liza each 3 or 4 times a day. And it makes us all feel good that we're going to be that much more prepared when we have to do this for round 2. But my inner circle, I don't know. It's bigger than it was. It's bigger than it was before, but it feels stronger than it ever was. I know that I can trust the people that I chose to have in my life.
Is that 5, 10?
10 maybe.
Okay.
Really, really tight, it's probably 5.
Alan, have you ever had a client who's advocated for themselves as much as Karen does?
Not as articulately or as intelligently as Karen does. Karen is an innocent woman falsely accused. She could sit back and say, go handle this. You're the professionals, go deal with it. That is not in her personality. And we're a better team for it. She has an encyclopedic knowledge of literally every single page of the discovery. I've never seen anything like it. She has an analyst's brain. She's got a rapier intelligence that is attendant to this type of analysis. very, very smart, very motivated. She has no off button. I'm getting texts. I wake up, I'm on the West Coast. So I wake up, she's been awake for 3 hours, and nearly every day I feel like, damn it, I've fallen back again. I've fallen behind again. Liza and I have to sort of get back on the treadmill and catch up with where Karen is today, because she'll literally just pick something out of the blue. To me, it's out of the blue. To her brain, it makes sense for her to pull this document or pull this report and say, well, have we thought about this paragraph or this sentence or this word in this report here or there? And then we gather together as a team, me and David and Liza and Karen will get on the phone and talk it through. So she's been, more than any other client I've ever seen, any other client I've ever met, she's been at the center of her own defense. She knows she didn't do this. She's motivated to make sure that the truth comes out.
Has she made any seminal decisions in this case? Have we seen any filings that are directly from her decision and her thought process of how things should play out?
The better question is, have we seen any filings that she didn't have a seminal investment in, a decision about, a suggestion about? Every single thing that you've ever seen filed in this case has gone through Karen, at least some of them are hyper legal, right? But she's educated herself on, she'd make a better lawyer than most lawyers these days. But she will have an impact, and she's got a seat at the table in terms of strategy and tactics that we use every single day.
There are so many people who have never met you, but are so invested in your life and the outcome of this case. I know there are some who adamantly support you, but do you ever worry about your safety with the people who do not want to see you succeed in this case?
I did more earlier on. I feel more insulated now. I feel safer that people know, because if anything ever happened to me or someone that I love, I think a lot of people would know where to look. So that makes me feel safer.
Have you received any credible threats?
Yep, I have. There's been some online that just the fact that someone's brazen enough to even post something like that gives you some insight into their stability or lack thereof.
People showing up at your house, calling your private cell phone?
No, that has not. I've really not had my physical boundaries impinged in any way, nor have my parents. I think by and large, very large, there are very friendly people all around me.
Your defense strategy is the most aggressive I've ever seen in a case. You've taken on the DA, you've taken on the judge. How much of that is Karen Reed? How much is that the team?
Probably equal parts. The defense strategy comes down to probably 3 or 4 words: get the truth out. That's the defense strategy. It may be more aggressive than you're used to. The conduct in this case is more dire than I'm used to. I've seen a lot of cases. I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't think I've ever seen a case with as many questions, as many suspect actions, and as much suspect conduct as I've seen in this case. There is unequivocally corruption in this case. There are absolutely cover-ups in this case. There's conduct by law enforcement and the DA's office that the likes of which I've never seen. And my job, our job as a team, is to get that truth out. I'm not going to sit idly by. Our team is never going to sit idly by and let an innocent woman be convicted based on false evidence, false pretenses, cover-ups, agreements and decisions on the other side to hamstring the defense, hamstring our ability to get the truth out. I'm not going to sit idly by to do that. So is it aggressive? Sure, it's aggressive. But a woman's life is in the balance. So yeah, we're going to stay aggressive. We've been aggressive. We're going to stay aggressive until the truth comes out.
I think it was 4 words at the end of the last trial, and it was, I'm going to declare a mistrial. What was that like for you to take in?
It was the outcome that I had thought about the least. I had thought about the best case scenario, and I always think about the worst because that's how I'm able to process. I have to think it through. How will I deal with this? Who will fight for me if I'm not sitting here to fight for myself? And of course, I thought about an acquittal because I know I deserve it. I had not really thought about a mistrial. It was only a couple days. It was like day 2, the end of day 2 into the deliberations, that both David and Alan told me separately when we were in the church next door that this could be a mistrial. And the prospect of that at that time during jury deliberations was a gut punch. But then when it was declared, it was such a relief that I was free. I was free to sleep in my own bed, hug my parents, continue to work on this case. My immediate next worry was, I hope I have my team available to go to battle all over again. But those moments, waiting to hear 12 strangers determine what is going to physically happen to you for the foreseeable future or forever, when you're able to walk out a free woman or man, it was an incredible relief. You just see your life it can just be taken away from you.
As we head to the second trial, one of the possible outcomes here could be a conviction. That could be prison time. How much have you thought about that?
I think about it every day, about prison time, and it doesn't frighten me the way it did 3 years ago. I was arrested 3 years ago tomorrow, and I've been in jail twice as a result of this prosecution. I've now accepted the fact that what's happening to me and the awareness this case has raised and the eyes it's opened, that is what my purpose is in Massachusetts and whatever effect this has in other parts of the country. And even if a jury got it wrong, or there's even more nefarious behavior on behalf of this prosecution, then just even more awareness will be raised. So I can accept whatever happens to me. Nothing will ever get the best of me or break me down.
There have been sort of these unsubstantiated claims in the atmosphere that there might have been some funny business with the jurors who were dismissed.
Right.
Is this a real concern that you have? Is this something that you are looking at, or have you just dismissed it as rumor?
I'll never just dismiss that as rumor. Something like that is, it's too convenient for the prosecution for us to just dismiss out of hand. Do I have any evidence, specific evidence, that there was jury tampering? I don't have any specific evidence of it. Do I think that there are questions that should be asked? Do I think that there are questions that have been raised about the way the jurors were dismissed, and who was dismissed very specifically? There were jurors who very, very clearly throughout, it's impossible to sit 8 feet away from 12 or 15 folks and not get an idea, just a chemistry idea of where those jurors are one way or the other based on certain, body language and facial expressions, et cetera, sighs and huffs and arm folds and leaning forward, leaning back, things of that nature based on certain witnesses. It's interesting that 3 of probably the most stalwart jurors who we believed, and I will go to my grave believing, were very supportive of the defense, ended up cast aside within minutes, not days or hours, within minutes of the jurors deliberating. Within minutes of me standing up and giving my final summation, those 3 jurors were gone. So is that a query? Absolutely. Have I dismissed it? I'll never dismiss it. Is there anything to do about it? Not so sure.
One of the state troopers who was involved with the Norfolk DA's office and on the periphery of the investigation was also responsible for the jury?
Right. He wasn't that far on the periphery of the investigation. He was involved in the investigation. He was a direct supervisor over the individuals that were testifying and about whom we had leveled some very, very serious claims and ended up proving those claims during the course of direct and cross-examination, the presentation of our case. That person, that supervisor, we found out well into the trial. As a matter of fact, at the end of the trial, we found out is the very person who was governing the jurors. That's a question that should be raised. That is an issue that should be teased out. Should never, ever happen. That is the very definition of a conflict of interest.
Is that standard in Massachusetts for just the DA's office to assign whoever they want to go be the sort of,
supervisor
of the jury? Yeah.
Yeah. Is it standard in Massachusetts? I hope not. I've never seen that in my life. But if I had a nickel for every time I said I've never seen this in my life as it pertains to the Massachusetts justice system, the criminal justice system, I'd have a lot of nickels. I've never seen that happen. It should never have happened. It's abhorrent to the system of justice in which we work. Those kinds of conflicts of interest they just can't stand. But they did, and we weren't even told about it. I mean, that was one of the most galling parts of that revelation, is that wait, this has been happening under our nose the entire trial, and I'm just now finding out about it. We would have made hay about it as soon as we found out, and we did. But it was 10 minutes before I was about to stand up and close the case.
Some of the things that Michael Proctor said about you were objectively vicious. What was it like to be there in court and listen to all those texts?
Another relief. So many moments in court were a relief to me, because I've known these things in some cases for years and had to keep it amongst our inner circle. Nothing Michael Proctor texted and admitted out loud in court about me would ever offend me. I'm proud of my overcoming of health crises. Proctor was just letting the public know what I've known about Michael Proctor, who he really is. And it's just luck that, as I know it, Michael Proctor doesn't have a daughter. But those text messages, as vile as they are, I think are the least of his offenses.
Alan, you could have had Michael Proctor read one or two of the texts. You spent hours having him read those out loud. I'm sure that was done by design.
It was. Everything that we did in that cross-examination of Michael Proctor was done by design. I wanted to make sure that I had an audience of 12 folks, an undefined 12 folks sitting in that jury box who were going to make a judgment about, not just about Karen Reed, they were going to make a judgment about the prosecution and about the investigating officer in charge of the prosecution or in charge of the investigation. They needed to see and hear a full panoply of who this person really is and get down to the fabric of the human being. That's the only way they could assess the veracity of the entire investigation. As goes the investigating officer, goes the investigation. And the prosecution, the Commonwealth, wanted to hide that. They wanted to mask it. They didn't want to give those data over to us. They didn't want to give those texts to us. They tried mightily in front of the court to get those suppressed. Why? Because as goes the investigator, goes the prosecution. The texts were vile. They were disgusting. They were not just, as Michael Proctor tried to slough them off, regrettable. Regrettable, Mr. Proctor? Seriously? That's the best you can come up with in terms of what the things that you're saying and the bias that you're showing about a criminal defendant and accused who has yet to be convicted of anything? That's the best you can say, is it's regrettable. It's far beyond regrettable. It's disgusting. It's disturbing. That man should not ever carry a badge. That man should not ever carry a gun. He should never have any authority over the community members ever again.
Are you surprised that he's been fighting for his job?
Yeah. What I think he should probably do is put his tail between his legs and get out of the jurisdiction and go find some other line of work, someplace where he can't hurt people.
How will Michael Proctor play in the retrial?
Oh, he's going to play large in the retrial. They can't. The prosecution, I think, probably wants very badly to take some magic eraser, some pixie dust, and erase Michael Proctor from the minds of the public, and certainly not from the minds of the new jury who's going to come in and assess this case. They're not going to be able to do it, not as long as we're breathing. Michael Proctor is going to be a part of this case, whether he likes it or not.
Because they don't necessarily have to call him, but obviously you have a right to call him as a witness.
Correct. And we will. If they don't call him, we will. We're not going to allow the Commonwealth to hide the truth from the last jury or this upcoming jury.
He's touched everything, everything.
There's no part of the case that he hasn't affected. No part of the case that he hasn't affected. He was in charge of the entire investigation. The personality and the character of the investigation is the personality and the character of Michael Proctor. They're one and the same. And we'll make sure that that's disclosed to the jury.
The feds devoted a lot of time and resources investigating what happened here. We are now years removed from that, and there's been no action taken. Why is that?
Well, I don't know that there's been no action taken. We don't know about any action taken. There's lots of, it's like
but no indictments.
No indictments, but it's like looking at a duck on water, Ted. The duck is very still, it's very stable, but underneath the little flippers are going crazy. I don't know what's happening just beneath the surface. I don't know what's happening. I'm not privy to what the federal investigation is actually, where it's going or how far it's led to this point. I do know that they were seminal in providing us with information. And when I say us, it's important to note, providing both sides. They didn't pick a side or choose a side in this. They provided everything that they decided was disclosable. They provided to both sides. The Commonwealth decided they didn't want to use it. As a matter of fact, tried mightily to keep us from using it. Thank goodness, cooler heads prevailed, and we were able to utilize much of what their investigation or what their disclosure consisted of. But if it hadn't been for them, the Commonwealth had been hiding evidence from us for years. And it wasn't until the federal investigation and revelation came to pass that we actually sort of were able to look behind the curtain, which is where we should have been looking in the first place. So it was central to our presentation of our defense.
Leah Foley will be the third U.S.
Okay, let's do it. We'll watch the rest of this during breaks. We can just watch it during breaks because I want to watch the rest of this. This is good. All right, let me bring this back over and we will start her up, Vern. So we're about 20 minutes ahead because they started pretty soon after we started that. It wasn't that long. Hold on, let me exit out of that. I'm trying to get, okay, so I got that. Hold on one second, guys. Get this right in there. Okay, here we go. I got it all ready for where we picked up, where it's going to pick up, where they pan down, and here we go. I can't get it to do 10 seconds ahead. My phone's set for 10 seconds to skip. The computer does not give me an option to skip ahead. I got to find it where it's at. I went through all the settings, but oh well. You guys ready? Here we go.
Court is back in session. You may be seated.
Who is your next witness?
Your Honor, the Commonwealth will call Dr. Gary Fowler to the stand.
Thank you.
A big red box. I don't like that. Okay, take that down. I hope they have the double screen again.
The testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Sure.
Good morning, doctor.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury, spelling your last name for the court?
My name is Dr. Gary Fowler, F as in Frank, A-L-L-E-R.
And what is your occupation?
I am a physician pathologist.
And where do you work?
I work currently at Signature Healthcare in Brockton.
And how long have you worked at Signature and in what capacity, sir?
Signature, I started, it's probably 6 months. I took a new job 6 months ago. I've been, I am the chief of pathology and the laboratory medical director at Signature.
And where did you work prior to your work at Signature about 6 months ago?
Prior to that, I was at Good Samaritan Medical Center in the same capacity.
And how long did you work at Good Samaritan for?
Since 2015, late 2015.
And did you work in any capacity similar to that prior to working at Good Samaritan?
Prior to Good Samaritan, I worked at the Kearney Hospital, which is in Dorchester. Started that job in 1996. So I stayed on staff at Kearney Hospital up until actually closed 6 months ago. So I've been on staff at Kearney's for quite a long time.
Where did you go to school and what degrees did you receive?
I went to college at Tufts University in Medford, graduated in '87. From there, I went to Tufts Medical School and graduated in 1991.
And following your graduation, where did you go from there?
After medical school, I did a residency at Tufts Medical Center in 1991 to 1996.
And then where did you go following your residency?
And right from residency, my first job was at Kearney Hospital, which I previously mentioned, so 1996.
And doctor, are you board certified?
I am board certified in anatomic pathology and clinical pathology.
And what is a board certification?
Board certification is something we need to show that we are actually qualified to perform the job that we need to do, both in anatomic and clinical pathology. It's a written exam that we take and we need to pass to demonstrate that we're competent and know what we're doing.
First, in just general terms, if you could explain to the jury, what is pathology?
Pathology is, there are two basic branches of pathology: anatomic pathology and clinical pathology. Anatomic pathology is basically, an anatomic pathologist is a physician or MD or a DO trained to make diagnoses on patients via looking at tissue biopsies, organs, tissue fluids, and we're also trained in autopsy pathology as well. So basically, an anatomic pathologist, we look at tissues via glass slides. Slides are made, and we every day make the diagnosis of, somebody has a cancer or somebody doesn't have a cancer, benign. Look at colon polyps, breast biopsies, pretty much anything that comes out of the operating room or a physician's office, any sort of biopsy. Clinical pathology, on the other hand, is basically a clinical pathologist is a physician, an MD or a DO, who specializes in the clinical lab, which basically is any fluid specimen, including blood specimens. When you go to the hospital and you have your blood test and it gets sent to the lab, the clinical pathologist is ultimately responsible for the quality of your lab tests and quality, and basically that's it.
And so the time that you worked at Good Samaritan, did that cover the date of January 29th, 2022?
Yes.
And again, what was your title and what was your job at Good Samaritan in the month of January 2022?
I was the chief of pathology at the time and laboratory medical director.
And what did you do as the laboratory medical director?
Laboratory medical director, basically, the laboratory medical director is responsible for the ultimate quality of any, either whether it's a biopsy, somebody's biopsy, or lab result. The laboratory medical director has to make sure that the final result is of excellent quality. So there are many different things that we need to make sure that things that are in place as far as need to make sure we have the correct amount of workers. You want to have enough workers. You want to make sure they're competent. So as many, there are policies for competency for all the lab techs and phlebotomists and even pathologists. So basically the laboratory medical director, if something goes wrong, it's ultimately his or her fault.
And the lab at Good Samaritan, is that lab accredited?
Yes, it is.
And by what body?
We are accredited, or Good Samaritan is accredited by the, we call it the CAP. It's a College of American Pathologists. They are considered the preeminent accrediting body for hospitals. They've been around for probably 70 plus years or so.
What is accreditation? What does that mean?
Accreditation is basically something that says that your laboratory is following guidelines and providing excellent quality. To be accredited with the CAP, every 2 years we have a laboratory inspection. They don't tell you when they're coming. They will give you a 3-month window and they'll come and inspect you. To make sure we have a good quality lab. Each section of the lab, pathology, the clinical lab, microbiology, chemistry, hematology. The CAP has a checklist with numerous requirements that one needs to fulfill. There are probably over 3,000 items that they look at.
And was your laboratory at Good Samaritan, was the accreditation up to date on January 29th, 2022?
We were accredited, still are.
Now, in Good Samaritan Medical Center, when a blood test is ordered, what types of things is the lab testing for?
I think the most common tests that are performed when you go and you have your blood tests is one is a chemistry test where we sodium, potassium, chloride, glucose. We also, a common test is a CBC or a complete blood count, where we look at your red blood cells and your white blood cells and your platelets. Those are the two most common tests.
And why is blood testing ordered in the course of medical treatment at a hospital?
When you're admitted to the hospital, usually you're sick, so the physician is usually a standard, ordering chemistry and CBC to see if there are any clues in those tests that could help the doctor take care of you. If they look at a BUN and creatinine, maybe if they're elevated, you either could be dehydrated or have renal failure. If you look at liver function tests, maybe there's something wrong with your liver. So it's just a general, a good look at the patients to see if there are any clues that could help them.
And as far as the blood testing results are concerned, how does that assist either a doctor or a clinician in treatment and diagnosis?
Basically, what I just said. If there's nothing, if the results are normal, that sometimes helps too. Rules things out. If they're normal, if they do a CBC and look at the hemoglobin and it's low and patient's anemic, maybe the patient might need a transfusion. So there are many different case scenarios where the results can help the provider, the clinician.
Now, with reference to alcohol, does the Good Samaritan Medical Center, do they also test alcohol within the blood?
Yes, we do.
And why would that assist medical treatment and diagnosis?
I think if a physician is wanting to know if somebody's been drinking or has alcohol on board, or maybe not. Maybe that patient has ingested maybe drugs of abuse. So they'll test for alcohol to see, one, if it's positive. And if it is, then it helps confirm that the patient has been drinking.
Now, are there any policies and protocols at Good Samaritan Medical Center with reference to how blood is taken and how blood is tested?
Yes, we have numerous policies. We have one policy specifically for phlebotomists. Those are laboratory technicians who draw the blood. So we have a policy for them to explain exactly what they need to do. And also in the laboratory, we have numerous policies basically for any tests that we provide. And so we have a policy for alcohol testing as well.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm placing before you two sets of documents. Just ask you to review those generally and look up when you're finished. And do you recognize what those are, sir?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what is contained within each of those two sets of documents?
Okay. The first one is a patient preparation for specimen collection. This is the policy that I was mentioning, specifically designed for our phlebotomist to detail the procedure of the blood draw. Basically goes through one of the most important parts of the process is correct patient identification, where we need to correctly identify the patient. We have the patient state his or her first and last name and state it out loud to make sure it matches which the patient that we're trying to draw. And then we also match up the bracelet to the medical record number on the patient's bracelet. So one of the most important things is correct patient identification. The rest of this policy goes on and just pretty much details what to do next, including finding the veins, cleaning the site. It has some information on if there are any complications. So it's basically the entire process of the blood draw. The second one is our alcohol policy, which pretty much details in detail what goes on behind the scenes for an alcohol blood test in our hospital.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, Caldwell, so you can introduce in the minutes the next two exhibits.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, for the record, it would be the patient preparation for specimen collection, the next exhibit in line.
All right. Exhibit 35.
And the ETOH policy would be the next exhibit number 37.
Exhibit 36. Excuse me. That's it.
Now, doctor, what types of precautions are in place at Good Samaritan with respect specifically to alcohol testing in the blood? Or I should say taking the blood sample from the patient.
Yes, one of the major things we need to do with taking somebody's blood for alcohol is to obviously not use an alcohol swab. Normally, when you have your blood test, they cleanse the area with a swab that contains alcohol. So in our policy is a specific statement that says, do not use alcohol swab because potentially when you're drawing the blood, if you suck up some of that residual alcohol, you could cause a false positive. So we have in our policy, and it's every hospital should have the same policy where we use a swab, a swab that has no alcohol. We call them a moist towelette. That's what we refer them to. Also, in the emergency room, my supervisor pretty much removed probably 95% of all the alcohol swabs. So just in case a phlebotomist forgets to not use an alcohol swab, they are hard to find. We need to keep a few there because we need to use alcohol wipes on certain tests like blood cultures and stuff like that. So
When were the alcohol swabs removed from the emergency department?
it was before my time.
So fair to say prior to January 29th, 2022?
Correct.
What is a phlebotomist and what do they do?
So phlebotomist is a healthcare professional who specializes in drawing blood. So they're the ones who are trained, competent, and know what to do when they draw a patient's blood.
What kind of training do phlebotomists receive at Good Samaritan?
We try to hire phlebotomists who have been trained. It's just easier. So they can have a high school background, but if we train on site, they just need to be trained on the proper protocol, proper procedures, and demonstrate competency.
Is there any sort of proficiency testing related to phlebotomists at Good Samaritan?
There is no proficiency testing for phlebotomists, but there's competency assessments. So with phlebotomists or any laboratory technician or even pathologists, there are strict guidelines for competency. We have to always make sure people know what they're doing, and it's a CLIA or a federal government regulation or requirement. So when anybody first starts in a hospital, the requirements are, one, initial training. You can't let anybody come in on their, without not knowing what they're doing. So we have to document that they have the initial training and they're competent. And then the law says 6 months from that, we do another competency assessment where we look at 6 elements of competency defined by CLIA, and 6 months from that, 1 year from the start date, is another competency. And then after that, it's annual thereafter. And that goes for phlebotomists, and it goes for any laboratory technician.
Doctor, once the blood is drawn by the phlebotomist, what happens then?
So the phlebotomist will draw it at the time. They need to have the specimens labeled in the patient's room because you don't want the phlebotomist to mislabel. So everything gets labeled at the patient's bedside with an initialed and with the phlebotomist's initial and date and time. That blood test will then be sent to the lab. In this case, the blood was drawn in the emergency room, so it gets packaged into a plastic bag and sent in a pneumatic tube up to the laboratory.
And once it's sent to the laboratory, what happens with the sample from there?
Once we receive it, it's called receiving the specimen. There will be a technician who then goes into the computer, enters the phlebotomist's name from the tube into the computer system, enters the time, and the technologist will look and see what was ordered, and then do the appropriate next step based on what was ordered.
And in a case in which alcohol is one of the items that are ordered, what is the next step as far as the testing goes?
So the next step with alcohol testing, we use a specific tube, so the phlebotomist would know what tube to use. It would be a light green tube that has lithium heparin in it. It is an anticoagulant. We don't want the blood to clot, so that's why we use an anticoagulant. So the first step when testing for alcohol is that the test is designed to be performed on serum or plasma. And to get that, the next step would be to centrifuge the blood. A centrifuge is a machine that spins the blood rapidly. We spin it at around 3,300 RPMs, which is pretty fast, rotations per minute. And the reason why we spin it, because centrifugation will allow it to separate the blood components based on the density. So heavier stuff like the red blood cells will go to the bottom, and the lighter stuff like the watery component of the blood will go to the top, and some of the white cells go into the middle. But for alcohol testing, we are targeting the top part of the blood component, which would be plasma.
And then once it goes through the centrifuge process, what happens then?
So once it's centrifuged, we have the separation of the blood components. We have the plasma ready to be tested, so that technologists will walk the specimen over. It's probably 10 feet from there, and put it onto our Roche Cobas machine. That's our machine that performs our chemistries as well as alcohol testing. It goes onto a machine. All the testing is basically inside of a black box. And the label present on the blood tube will dictate what the Roche machine will test. So based on the barcode label, once it's on our machine, it knows what test to do, and it will perform an alcohol test.
And Doctor, for our stenographer, do you know how to spell that Roche Cobas machine that you were just referencing?
So R-O-C-H-E, Roche, and Cobas, C-O-B-A-S.
Thank you, sir. May I approach on?
Yes.
Doctor, showing you another series of documents. Again, if you could just look at that and look up when we finish. Do you recognize those records, sir?
Yes.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are the medical records of Karen Reed.
And sir, is there an indication within those records as far as the date of treatment for Ms. Reed?
Yes, there's a bunch of dates in here.
As far as the treatment is concerned, sir?
Yes.
And
Yep.
what is the date of treatment?
Oh. 1/9/22.
Sorry, is that 29/22?
That's what it says on this. Admit date, it says 1/29/22.
Thank you, sir. That's fine. Doctor, if I could direct your attention further into the document to a previously tabbed portion, do you see any indication in there as far as a result for alcohol testing?
Yes, I do.
And with respect to that result, have you reviewed these records prior to today?
Yes, I did.
And if you could explain to the jury sort of the timeline from this blood sample as far as, let's start with first when it was ordered.
So when it was ordered, it was 9:03 in the morning.
Okay. And when was it
Okay.
taken, sir?
The blood test was taken 5 minutes later, so 9:08.
And then what happened, or what is the next time that something of any significance happened with it?
5 minutes from that, 9:13, we received it, and 9:53 in the morning, the result was entered into the computer. So it was ordered at 9:03. and I believe it was 9:53. The results were in the computer.
And may I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm about to seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit.
Any objection, Ms. Little? No objection. All right, thank you. Exhibit 37.
Your Honor, may I return to the documents?
Yes.
And doctor, what was the result of the testing for alcohol in the defendant's blood when it was taken shortly after 9 a.m. on January 29th?
93 milligrams per deciliter.
Thanks. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Little?
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Fowler.
Oh, good afternoon.
The Good Samaritan lab is a clinical lab, not a forensic lab. Is that right?
Correct.
And hospitals are not in the legal business of calculating an individual's blood alcohol concentration. Is that right?
I would say 99.9% of the time we are not in the legal business. We are testing alcohol for the diagnosis of alcohol intoxication. But occasionally a case may come, very rare, to a hospital, and it ends up being a legal case. It's not common. I think uncommon.
And you'd agree that there are differences between screening tests that are conducted at hospitals and forensic tests that are conducted by law enforcement, right?
Yes.
The purpose of testing in a clinical setting is to assist in the diagnosis and treatment of a patient, right?
Correct.
And physicians need to analyze blood quickly. They need to get the results so they can see what's in a patient's system and then effectively and efficiently treat that patient, right?
Correct.
Whereas in a forensic setting, tests for blood alcohol concentration are designed to produce results that are reliable and credible for use in court. Correct?
Correct.
You testified earlier today that your lab is accredited by CAP, which is the College of American Pathologists. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
But CAP is a clinical laboratory accreditation, not a forensic accreditation, right?
We don't have the forensic accreditation for Good Samaritan.
In fact, Good Samaritan has never been investigated or accredited by any forensic accreditation team to ensure that you perform all of your tests with the integrity necessary to support results in court, right?
We've never had the forensic accreditation, but we have very good quality lab results, which I could go into further.
But you've never been accredited by a forensic accreditation team,
No,
right?
no.
And the lab at Good Samaritan has never been accredited by the ANSI, which is the National Accreditation Board known as ANAB. Are you familiar with that organization?
No.
Are you aware that ANAB is the forensic accreditation body that in the United States that ensures that laboratories' procedures meet the minimum standards necessary to ensure results are reliable and credible for use in court?
Objection.
Sustained.
Now, the most reliable method of forensic ethanol testing is called headspace gas chromatography, or HSGC. Are you familiar with that process?
Yes.
And HSGC is the method that's used by forensic labs to test for blood alcohol content, right?
Correct.
And that's because forensic tests require the testing of whole blood for the presence of alcohol, right?
Correct.
Can you briefly, just for the jury, describe sort of the difference between a whole blood test and a serum test?
Sure. So whole blood, to put it simply, when you have your blood drawn, you see the fluid coming out, all red. That's whole blood. We don't do anything to it. We don't spin it down. We don't centrifuge it. That is whole blood. That is the specimen of choice for forensic blood ethanol testing. Hospitals, on the other hand, our methodology, which is just as good as the forensic headspace gas chromatography, is based on looking at the serum or the plasma. So we don't, that's what when I explained that we need to centrifuge it, take the liquid portion off the top. So in the hospital, we test it on the serum or the plasma. Now, did you ask me the difference? You want me to go into the difference?
That's enough, doctor. Thank you. I'll ask some additional questions
Okay.
to kind of clarify. And in a forensic lab, they actually require the testing of whole blood, correct?
Correct.
And HSGC directly measures ethanol in the blood.
Correct.
And this method is designed to be accurate and reliable for forensic purposes for use in legal proceedings, correct?
Correct.
But the testing in this case was performed using the hospital's clinical chemistry machine instead of a forensically defensible method like HSGC, right?
Correct.
And that clinical chemistry machine performs what you just testified to, a serum test, right?
Serum or plasma.
Serum or plasma. And hospitals use serum or plasma testing because it's actually quicker and more efficient than HSGC, right?
Yes, it's less labor intensive. It's easy to automate, but at the same time, very, very good and very accurate.
But serum testing does not actually measure alcohol directly. It instead measures the presence of what's called NADH, right? Say that again. Yes, I'll repeat that. That was my fault. Serum testing does not actually measure alcohol directly. Instead, it measures the presence of NADH. Is that right?
Almost.
Well, NADH is a byproduct of alcohol, right?
Correct. I can go into the testing how methodology that we use to explain it if you want me to.
Well, serum testing measures the presence of NADH, correct?
It measures the rate of change of NADH production, so it doesn't actually look at just NADH, and it measures the rate of production, and I can go into more detail on that. Alcohol testing in the lab is correct.
I'll ask you some additional
Okay,
questions
sure.
about NADH, and we'll
Sure.
get there.
Yeah.
So you can do this now, but let the doctor answer his question fully next question, okay? And the following questions.
Doctor, the higher the NADH in a patient's system, the higher the serum test result, correct?
That may not be correct, no. It's the rate of change of NADH production based on our methodology. I can go into that. So our test system is a little bit different than the forensic testing system, but it's also very good and very accurate, and almost when we compare our methodology to the headspace, we get the exact same results, and when we compare and with peer laboratory comparisons. But what we do is and I think the jury needs to know this, maybe some of you might understand the chemistry behind it, but we do, we take the patient's sample, and it's based on, we add, because when there's alcohol in the specimen, we add, actually, in the test system, alcohol dehydrogenase. It's the same enzyme that's in the patient's body. In addition, we add a surplus of NAD to it. NAD is similar to NADH. They get converted back and forth. So when we put it on our test system, it's alcohol dehydrogenase is in there, and what happens is when there's alcohol, it combines with NAD that we add to it. It creates NADH. And then in our machine, there's a spectrophotometer, which can monitor the rate of NADH production over baseline. And we use, there's a something that measures, a photometer that measures the NADH production. It looks at light in this physics and looks at 340 nanometers. And it's pretty accurate. It will monitor, it will tell you, it will tell the system how much NADH is produced, and that amount is directly proportional to the alcohol in the patient sample. So it's a very, very accurate test, but there are some limitations that I can go into.
So wait for another question.
Okay.
Next question, Ms. Little.
Yes, so serum testing can be subject to errors, right? And there are limitations.
There are some limitations that I can explain, just like headspace gas chromatography may have some limitations too, but I can go into them.
Next question.
What are some of the limitations of the serum testing?
Okay. So the serum test, as with many tests in the laboratory, different things can interfere with our laboratory tests. And the three most common ones, which are unlikely to affect ethanol testing, is we abbreviated HIL. We want to look at those three things. One is hemolysis, which is H, and the other one is icterus, which is high bilirubin. And the third is L for lipids. High lipids will interfere with alcohol testing or with any testing based on that same methodology. Our machine, the Rose-Kobash machine, and all the machines out in the market today are very sophisticated. If we have elevated levels of any H or I or L, it will flag it and raise the potential for a problem. The next thing on the list is that our alcohol testing is not absolutely specific for ethanol. The two possible other alcohols that can cross-react, one is propanol and butanol. But then it goes clinical history. Did the patient ingest those two alcohols? And third is there's some unusual hematologic malignancies like Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia that can interfere. So it's always have to correlate with the clinical situation. The next one, sometimes there can be patients who make endogenous, make their own alcohol. So very rarely, some patients may truly have a positive result. That could be from our test or Headspace. They make their own, so we have to rule that out. It's a rare condition. And the next one is one that's in the literature, which is LDH and lactic acid. If a patient has a markedly elevated LDH or lactic acid, those one is an enzyme, and the other one is an acid. That can cause false positives. Now,
if I could stop you there, doctor. I think those were the four that you identified, the four limitations: the lactic acid, the hematology.
Yeah.
If I could just
go ahead and ask your next question.
If I could ask you a few more questions about LDH and lactic acid.
Sure.
You're aware, Dr. Fowler, of the medical literature establishing that the presence of LDH and lactic acid can lead to falsely elevated serum readings, correct?
Correct.
And that's because lactic acid or LDH actually forms NADH.
Right? Lactic acid, I'll have to go into a little bit of chemistry. Lactic acid and LDH, lactate dehydrogenase, they both act on each other. And LDH and lactic acid needs NAD plus to break it down. So in theory, when you're testing a serum plasma for blood alcohol, if there's extra LDH or high levels of LDH, high levels of lactic acid, you add it to the test system, and then Roche throws in, or Siemens throws in the NAD, it will form NADH. That was first documented, I think, back in the older versions of these ethanol testings back in the 1990s, when they stumbled on, they were looking for biomarkers or reasons in kids with SIDS, little babies, and they found that two of these babies had a positive alcohol. But
Doctor, if I could just ask the next question, if that's okay.
Sorry.
So in other words, NADH, studies have found, can actually be formed by certain biomechanical processes other than the presence of alcohol, right?
Yes.
Are you aware that the National Institute of Health has found that liver diseases, kidney diseases, muscle injury, trauma, and even anemia are some of the health conditions that can lead to a rise in serum LDH levels?
Yes.
Are you aware that Ms. Reed was severely anemic in January of 2022?
Sustained.
Are you aware that the medical literature has also found that patients suffering from multiple sclerosis have a twofold increase in NADH levels as compared to controls?
I'm going to allow that.
I haven't read anything specifically related to the NADH level, but but I want to go back to the point where our laboratory, our testing is not based.
Let him finish his answer.
It's not. It's the rate of change of NADH. So if somebody has NADH on board, I believe it's not going to affect the result. It's the rate of change, and it basically, back to the anemia. I haven't read or heard of that.
That was stricken. That was not allowed.
It all goes back to the lactic acid and the LDH. The NADH doesn't matter. So looking at multiple sclerosis patients, they can have elevated LDH and lactic acid, but it's not to the extent that it can interfere with the alcohol levels. There was a study maybe 7-10 years ago.
Your Honor, there's no question pending.
You asked him about a study, if he was aware of the studies.
I asked, and that's a yes or no question. And he's...
All right, Doctor, we're going to hold that there for you and ask the next question.
Doctor, have you reviewed the August 21st, 2013 peer-reviewed article entitled Serum NAD Through Disease Course in Multiple Sclerosis, which was sponsored by the Center of Healthy Brain Aging by the University of New South Wales? Which...
Can you do that again and slow down, please?
Sure. Doctor, have you reviewed the August 21st, 2013 peer-reviewed article entitled Serum NAD Levels Through Disease Course in Multiple Sclerosis, which was sponsored by the Center for Healthy Brain Aging by the School of Psychiatry at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia, which specifically found that patients suffering from multiple sclerosis have a twofold increase in NADH levels as compared to controls?
Objection.
I'll strike the part of what the article held. Is he aware of the article?
No, I'm not, to be honest, no.
Dr. Fowler, did you consider Ms. Reed's anemia and multiple sclerosis condition when you conducted the alcohol test on January 29, 2022?
No, we don't, no.
And again, serum tests like the ones conducted in this case don't test for ethanol. They only test for NADH, right?
We test for the rate of change of NADH production.
And Doctor, you did a number of other tests on Ms. Reed on January 29, 2022. You tested for additional drugs, not just alcohol, correct?
Correct.
And all of those results were negative.
Correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay.
Doctor, are you aware, I know your lab at Good Samaritan did not do this process, but are you aware through your training and experience of any sort of mathematical conversion that can be done from a serum reading in milligram per deciliter to a blood alcohol concentration in whole blood?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow it. The door was open.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I am aware. Yep.
And please describe what you're aware of with reference to that.
Well, with blood alcohol concentrates goes to, when it's in your blood, it goes more to the watery components of your blood. So when I described the process earlier, whole blood is before we spin it. And when we test the plasma, which is specifically testing the watery component. Now, people have done studies like how much percentage of water is a serum versus whole blood. Basically, to put it simple, there's a higher percentage of water in the serum versus whole blood. So a hospital result will always be a little bit higher than a test on whole blood. It can be, I think the ratio, the conversion factor is anywhere from 1.1 to 1.18. So it could be 18% or 11% higher in serum versus whole blood. But we don't do it. That's what I read. I will defer that to the experts.
Now, doctor, you were referencing in your cross-examination about a study that you were aware of about 10 years ago or so regarding MS and alcohol testing. Is that correct?
It was more on MS, looking at the results of lactic acid and LDH to see how high the levels of lactic acid can go in a group of multiple sclerosis patients. When reviewing that, we found that the range went from some normal range, 16% of the multiple sclerosis patients had normal lactic acids, but the remainder had elevated levels. But those levels were not anywhere near the required levels to produce a false positive. Our package inserts and for the Roche testing system, the Roche has, it's an FDA-approved test, and they have to do in-depth, detailed testing before they allow any hospital to do a test. And they have listed levels of lactic acid beyond which the test would not be reliable. But the results, based on this study of 600 multiple sclerosis patients, 2 big centers in Italy and 1 in the Netherlands, show that the highest level of lactic acid in the MS patients did not achieve, didn't get close. Usually patients with MS that are asymptomatic can have normal or low normal levels, or slightly elevated. It was the ones that had more symptoms that had elevated levels up to, I think the highest was 6.5 millimoles per deciliter, which is not high enough to interfere with our result.
Now, with respect to the lab at Good Samaritan Medical Center, the interference that you were speaking about earlier on cross-examination, what would happen if any of those types of interference were to occur during the course of the testing?
No, I'll allow it.
The 3 main ones, which I detailed earlier, is the hemolysis, icterus, and lipemia. Machines are sophisticated. It will detect it and say, it will flag it and say, please do not result it, or we'll have a disclaimer saying, interpret this result with caution. The results may not be accurate. And it hardly ever happens with alcohol testing. But if it did, we would get a result like that, and we probably wouldn't report it.
And from your review of the defendant's medical records, specifically her testing from January 29th, did you notice any interference or any reports like that in her record?
No.
Now, The testing that you're doing at Good Samaritan is in relation to patients such as that might have cancer or heart disease or something like that, correct?
Correct.
Now, you were talking or started to speak on cross-examination about the good quality lab results that you have from your lab, and you wanted to go into that further. Could you please expound upon that for the jury now?
We have, you mentioned proficiency testing before. So all hospital laboratories accredited by the CAP or have to participate in proficiency testing. What that means is that every 3 times a year, and they give us 5 unknown samples. And we have to test it, report it back to CAP, which also reports back to the government. And we have to basically get the correct answers. And with alcohol testing, it's probably one of the best tests in the laboratory. Always have right on the money results. But at the same time, we're also able to look at results of all the other labs that participated in this proficiency testing. So we can look at different methods. We can look at labs that had the same method as us to see how we're doing. And usually with this proficiency testing, we have 3,000 labs across the nation that have the same methodology as us, so we can compare to them. And also, interestingly, we can see the labs that are using headspace gas chromatography. And out of interest, we can see, how do we compare? And we have pretty exactly the same results on these proficiency testings. We also look at some statistics as well, not going into them, but we can look at some stats like standard deviations and SDs. And actually the hospitals with enzymatic testing have slightly better stats with that compared to Headspace. Pretty close, but a little bit better.
And doctor, from your review of the defendant's medical records and the blood testing in this case, was that done in conformity with the policies and protocols at Good Samaritan?
We have policies in place to be followed, and there's no reason not to think that somebody didn't follow policy.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else, Ms. Little?
No questions.
All right, doctor, you are all set, sir. Thank you.
Thank God. Oh my God. Whew. I could not do it too early for that. Normally I could,
Do you have
I
another witness, Mr.
if I
Brown?
needed to.
Okay.
The Commonwealth calls Jason Becker.
Who's that? I don't know. Does anybody know who that is? Can't wait for Proctor, McCabe. When is that going to be? I don't want to miss that one. It better not be a day that I decide not to live stream. I'll be so mad.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Good afternoon, sir.
All right, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Jason Becker.
How old are you?
I am 36 years old.
Do you live in the area?
I do. I live in Canton.
Tell us a little bit about your education.
My education, high school and college UMass. And I went to EMT school a little over 10 years ago and paramedic school.
Tell me a little bit about EMT school. How old were you when you started EMT school?
When I started EMT school, roughly 21 years old.
Why did you decide to go to EMT school?
I wanted to save some lives.
Tell us a little bit about EMT school. What did it require?
EMT school is a couple months of classroom stuff, and then you do some ride time on the ambulance. Paramedic school is a little different. It's a little extended, 2 years worth of training. You're doing hospital, ER time, and ambulance time also.
How long did you serve as an EMT before you went to paramedic school?
I worked as an EMT for approximately 5 years.
Can you estimate how many dozens or hundreds of calls you were on during that time?
Hundreds.
Why did you decide then to go get paramedic training?
Oh, I wanted to be on the fire department, and it was a prerequisite.
Did you complete paramedic school successfully?
I did.
Were you still working as an EMT at the time?
I was.
And inevitably, did you seek to have a different job? Did you try to be a firefighter?
I wanted to be a firefighter, correct.
Were you successful in doing that?
I was.
Tell us a little bit about that, sir.
In the Canton Fire Department. So I got on the Canton Fire Department, and then they send you to the fire academy, where you train to be a firefighter.
So you had EMT training, paramedic training, and then firefighter training.
That's correct.
On the Canton Police Department, did you serve dual roles as a paramedic and as a firefighter?
Fire department?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Yes, sir. Firefighter and as a paramedic.
You served as a firefighter and a paramedic.
Correct.
In the Canton Fire Department, does it have more than one station?
There's two.
Is there one station that's larger or smaller than the other?
Station 1 is the headquarters, which is larger.
Have you ever spent time at Station 1 as a firefighter or a paramedic?
I have. We rotate through both stations.
I want you to take us back to January 29th, 2022. Were you working that evening?
I was.
What station were you assigned to?
Canton Station 2.
Canton Fire Station 2?
Correct.
And that's the smaller of the two stations.
It is.
Were you working with anybody at Fire Station 2 that night?
My ambulance partner at the time was firefighter Dan Whitley.
Was there anybody else who was working at Fire Station 2 in addition to you and Dan Whitley?
Correct. There was an engine company with 3 guys on it.
3 people were assigned to the
engine, correct.
Were you and Dan Whitley assigned as partners for the day, the week?
Correct. Yes, we were.
Which was it, the day or the week, sir?
The week.
So for the entire week, you're partners with a person, and does that rotate on other assignments?
It does. It rotates.
So on this particular week, you were assigned as partners with Dan Whitley.
I was.
What were your roles between the two of you?
Well, at the time, he was my preceptor. I was a new paramedic at the time. So I was more or less the lead tech on all the calls as part of my training. And Dan's been a paramedic for a long time. So he was there to teach me.
So would Dan Whitley be the lead on the call and he would help you?
I would be the lead.
You would be the lead.
Correct.
Did you get a call that early morning hours of January 29, 2022?
We did.
What was the call assigned for?
It was a call for Section 12 psych eval.
Very briefly, can you tell us what a Section 12 is?
Sure. It's a transportation order filled out by police, doctor, basically for us on the ambulance that we have to take the patient, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, because they're a threat to themselves or someone else.
When you received the call for Section 12, were you aware that there were other calls that Fire Station 1 had responded to that morning?
We were aware. You can hear the calls going out each station.
Were you or Dan Whitley any part of that earlier call that Fire Station 1 responded to before you got the call for the Section 12?
We were not.
So your efforts were after?
We were after, correct.
After you got the call to respond to a Section 12, did you head towards Fairview Road?
We did.
Tell us a little bit about the trip to Fairview Road.
It was a little extended because of the weather conditions at the time. Snowing heavily, windy, a little visibility.
Okay. How long did it take to get from Fire Station 2 to Fairview Road?
Approximately 8 to 10 minutes.
Who drove?
Firefighter Whitley.
Now, on the way to Fairview Road, do you sit in the front of the ambulance?
We do.
Take us to when you arrived to Fairview Road. What do you see?
You see a bunch of police lights. Canton Engine 3 was already on scene, so we parked behind them.
Did you have it, without talking about what you spoke about, did you have a chance to speak to anybody at the scene?
We briefly spoke to the Canton police, and they briefed us and sent us to where the defendant was at the time.
Why do you have a conversation with other first responders at the scene before you do anything?
Just they're making sure the scene is safe to begin with, and they're unseen first, so they have a little more info than what our dispatch would have.
After you had that debriefing with colleagues, were you directed to approach any certain person?
I was.
Where did you go?
I went to the defendant, who was sitting in a black SUV type car.
Were there other persons inside the car with the defendant?
From my understanding, it was one person in the driver's seat.
And what seat was the defendant in?
She was in the front passenger seat.
Did you have a chance to speak to her?
I did.
And the person you spoke to who was in the passenger seat of that car, do you see that person in court today?
I do.
Could you point out and describe an article of clothing, please?
Miss Reed right there, she's in the blue, navy blue.
How long was your conversation with the defendant while she was still seated inside the vehicle?
Approximately 5 to 8 minutes.
At some point, did you and the defendant move to another location?
We did.
Where did you go?
So we went back in the ambulance.
After having a conversation with her, was she cooperative going back to the ambulance with you?
She was.
And did you ask her to be seated in the ambulance?
I did.
Was she cooperative with that as well?
She was.
After she was seated in the ambulance, did you close the doors and get in?
We did.
When you say we, who was with you?
Me and firefighter Whitley.
So you and firefighter Whitley were in the back of the ambulance with Miss Reed. Who was going to drive the ambulance?
Firefighter Sam Park.
Where did he come from?
He was on the fire engine that was already on scene.
I want to ask you questions now about what you did in the back of the ambulance and some of the conversations that you had. Tell us what your role is once you have a patient in the back of the ambulance. What do you do next?
Each patient's different, depends on what the call is for. In this specific situation, it was more a psych eval, because that's what we're called for. Initial triage questions: is the patient cooperative, uncooperative, combative? I asked her name, her mental status, where she was. I asked her if she was suicidal, and if she was, did she have a plan? Did she want to hurt anyone else? Those are some of the initial triage questions that I would ask.
Why do you ask those questions?
Just to get a kind of a judgment on the patient, reading the patient.
What's your role at that point? Are you an investigator?
I'm not.
Are you in any way law enforcement?
I'm not.
So what's your focus when you're speaking to a patient?
It's basically hearing them speak in their story. In this specific situation, we didn't know circumstances. We just knew that Miss Reed had found her husband, which she was gone dead on the side of the road. So it was a traumatic call.
So when you were there, you knew nothing about what had happened before you got there?
We did not.
And your role had nothing to do with any of that investigation?
We did not.
You were solely focused on caring for the patient?
Correct.
Did you have any other role other than caring for the patient?
Just making sure she got to the hospital safely. She didn't hurt herself.
During those conversations, are you and firefighter Whitley doing the same thing or different things?
Again, it depends on the call. I was the lead tech, so I'm the one documented, giving a report to the nurses, the staff. So I was more kind of getting that information, my initial triage questions, and then just kind of sat and supported Miss Reed. And
were you writing down information, technical information about status and health on a report?
I was, yes.
While you were doing that, was your colleague speaking to Miss Reed?
He was.
Did you have a chance at times to hear what they were speaking about?
Yeah, and no.
At other times, did you speak directly to Miss Reed?
I have.
Can you describe her demeanor or temperament?
Initially, she was agitated because she didn't feel like she needed to go to the hospital. She said the statement she made, she didn't mean. She just kind of said in jest because of the events that she went through. So she was, but then there'd be periods of which she'd be calm, and then it would fluctuate. She would have like pressured speech, repetitive, but all in all, she was cooperative.
At some point, did you have a chance to speak to her directly about her mood?
About her mood?
About her mood.
I don't know if I understand the question.
Okay. Did she say anything to you about her last interaction with what she referred to as her husband?
Objection. Sustained.
Did she make any statements to you when you were giving her treatment or speaking to her about her husband?
Objection. I'll allow that. It came in.
One of the reasons why she was saying suicidal stuff is because the last conversation she had with her husband at the time was an argument. I didn't feel like it was my role to really find out the details on what was said. But that's what she said to me.
That the last thing she said to him was an argument?
Objection. Sustained.
Did she tell you what the argument was about?
She did not.
Inevitably, did you get a chance to bring her to the hospital?
We did.
Did you stay in the back of the ambulance with her?
I did.
Did you continue to have conversations with her?
Yes, I did.
Did you hear conversations or parts of conversations she was having with your colleague?
I had parts.
When you got to the hospital, what happens next?
So we brought Miss Reed into the hospital, registered her, bring her to the psychiatric section. Is it?
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. Mr. Jackson?
Thank you, Honor.
I have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Firefighter Becker.
Good afternoon.
When you first arrived at the scene, there was at least two Canton police officers there, still.
Correct.
Do you remember their names?
Officer Saraf and Officer Mulvaney.
Okay. Their cruiser was there. You said that an engine was still there?
Correct.
And was there another ambulance there, or the other ambulance had already left the scene? They'd cleared?
They had already transported to the hospital.
And remind me, you were in ambulance two?
Two. I was ambulance 2.
Got it. You parked behind the SUV where you ultimately made contact with Miss Reed, correct?
I think it was more in front of the SUV because the way the SUV was parked.
Got it. Got out of the ambulance, ultimately made contact with Miss Reed through the passenger door?
Correct.
Had a short conversation with her there?
I did.
You said it was maybe 5 to 8 minutes?
More like 5 minutes because of the weather conditions.
Okay, nothing of great consequence. I'm guessing just an initial, I think you called it sort of a triage assessment?
Well, it's more of just introducing myself and asking her how she was doing.
Got it. And then there was one other person in the cab of the vehicle as well?
There was.
Female, male?
Female.
So there are two females, one Miss Reed, one another female. Did you see any other civilian females out there?
I didn't see.
Okay,
But
so at least where you were, the contact that you had with Miss Reed and this other female, there was just two of them, not a third one.
from what I saw, correct.
Did you get the other female's name?
Not at the time. I did not.
Okay. By the way, have you since gotten her name?
Based on a conversation Firefighter Whitley and Miss Reed had back in the ambulance.
Got it. Okay. And who is that other person?
Miss Carrie Roberts.
Okay. When you first observed Miss Reed, did you note whether or not there was anything unusual about her physical appearance, meaning anything on her?
She did, yes.
Describe that for the jurors, please.
She had some blood around her mouth, her neck area.
At that point, were you concerned about, obviously you're concerned mainly about her safety and getting her safely to the hospital, correct?
That's correct.
Were you worried that that might be her blood?
She had said that she had given CPR to her husband.
Okay, you jumped a question ahead. I was going to say, did she tell you that it was in fact not her blood?
She did, so that kind of, in a way, ruled it out.
Okay.
No injury for me.
And you didn't indicate, you didn't notice anything about her that looked like she was physically injured or physically in harm?
I did not.
Okay. She indicated that she had given CPR mouth to mouth attempts at mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
She did.
And that would account for the blood on her face and in her hair and on her neck.
That's what she told me.
Okay. And based on your observations of her, you didn't have any reason to quarrel with that.
Correct.
Okay. You indicated that her tone was somewhat rapid and repetitive. Is that right?
It fluctuated. So at times it was, yes.
Did it appear to you at that time that she had gone through a pretty significant trauma as best you were trained at the time?
Objection.
A little bit more of a foundation. I'll give it to you.
Sure. Have you ever, in your course of training, seen individuals who have gone through some sort of a traumatic event?
Frequently.
Frequently.
Everyone's different, though.
Understood. Well, obviously, everybody's got their own personalities and the way of dealing with those things, right?
Sure.
Have you been able to, through your training, assess whether, at least in your belief, your observations, if someone has gone through a relatively traumatic event, as opposed to just someone whistling down the sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay. Did it appear at that time when you're interacting with Ms. Reed that she was showing the signs consistent of having gone through a trauma?
At the time, yes.
Okay. So hence the rapid speech, the repetitive speech, things of that nature?
Correct. For her. For the defendant, some people don't have repetitive
Understood.
speech.
I'm just talking about your observations of her at that time.
Yes, sir.
Her demeanor was consistent with having gone through a significant trauma.
For the situation, sure. Yes.
Okay. You said that she went from calmness to agitation. The agitation you accounted for being, I don't necessarily want to go to the hospital. I don't want to be sectioned, correct?
She felt like she didn't need to. It wasn't, she wasn't going to act on her comments about wanting to harm herself.
You called it, I think in a report, it's SI, suicidal ideation.
Correct.
That's obviously of great concern to you and your partners when you're assessing a patient, correct?
That's right.
You don't want to leave someone on their own if they're going to self-harm, correct?
That's correct.
You pretty quickly assessed, I'm guessing, Firefighter Becker, that she was not, in fact, in the position to self-harm, that I think you said that the statements that she originally made, if John dies, I don't want to live, were not necessarily at the level of actual suicidal ideation. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, at the time I believed her because of the information we got and what she went through.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand your answer.
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Of course. It's probably my fault. At the time that you assessed her, even though she had made some comments about if John doesn't live, I don't want to live either, you did not elevate that to the level of her being suicidal at that moment.
So I couldn't rule it out, but
okay.
I didn't think it was a huge threat at the time.
Understood.
But you couldn't rule it out, so that's why we had to take her to the hospital.
Understood. I mean, you had a Section 12. You had to take her irrespective of what you ruled in or out, right?
Right.
Okay. Firefighter Whitley was with you in the back of the ambulance the entire time you were with Miss Reed, correct?
Not the entire time. He was before we decided transporting. He was kind of in and out, trying to find more of, talking to the police officers, find more of a story of, what happened, why we're taking the defendant on a Section 12.
Once you and Miss Reed were in the back of the ambulance, the Firefighter Whitley then joined you in the back of the ambulance?
He did.
How much time lapsed?
It was a couple minutes at the most.
Okay, so it wasn't a lengthy amount of time.
It wasn't lengthy.
And he was with you during the transport, along with Miss Reed, for the whole transport back to Good Sam.
Yes.
And you said on direct examination, I think your phrase was, all in all, she was cooperative with us.
For the majority of the transport, yes.
Okay. Never became combative, never got physical, nothing like that?
No.
Okay. She did refer to Mr. O'Keefe as her husband or her spouse?
That's correct.
You're aware of HIPAA rules, obviously. You're in the medical field, correct?
Correct.
You're aware at the time that HIPAA rules would demand or dictate that unless you're a spouse or a parent or a child, there are certain rules against getting or providing information to someone who isn't one of those close family members, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You previously indicated on direct examination that, I think your words were, that Ms. Reed indicated that her last conversation she had with her husband was an argument, correct?
Correct.
You've previously testified about that statement in other particulars, right? Other hearings.
I have.
You're paraphrasing. You didn't write down what she said about her previous interactions with Mr. O'Keefe, and you didn't record those on a tape recorder, correct?
I wrote down in my report that she said she had an argument.
Right. You didn't write them down at the time. That was a bad question on my part. You weren't taking notes as she was speaking.
Yeah, I could have been. I mean, it's kind of for every call, we jot down notes on a notepad, just
Okay.
so, when we give the staff a report, we can read off it.
Do you have those notes?
I don't.
Okay. Do you think you took notes or no?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I could have been typing them on the computer. That's what we typed the report on
Okay.
at the time.
Do you have an independent recollection of taking notes, either handwritten or on a computer, as you sit here right now?
I couldn't tell you if I did one or the other. Sometimes
Okay.
I write on the computer, sometimes I don't.
Or you might not have written anything down, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So in any event, you weren't taking down, even if you were taking notes, you weren't taking down verbatim quotes of what she was saying. You were paraphrasing the information that was coming to you, correct?
That's correct.
All right. You had previously said or testified that the last time, let me rephrase that just a little bit. You previously indicated in recounting what it was that Miss Reed actually said to you was something along the lines of she was upset because her last words to him were because of her last words to him being in anger.
I object.
I'm going to allow the question.
Is that correct?
Well, I probably phrased it a little wrongly. The last words. It was the last conversation.
Okay, that wasn't my question. My question is a simple one. In a previous hearing, did you use the phrase "her last words to him"?
Yes,
were
I
in
did.
anger?
I did.
And that was at a hearing where you're under oath, just like you are now, correct?
Correct.
That was a little closer in time than we are now. It was maybe a year ago, correct?
Correct.
Actually, my mistake. It was about 2.5 years ago. It was a grand jury, correct?
Grand jury was before. Yes.
Okay. And the phrase that you used was, and I want to concentrate on that for just a quick second, Firefighter Becker.
Sure.
The phrase that you used at that time was that she said, quote, like her last words to him. She was upset about her, quote, last words to him. Is that right?
I object.
All right, can I see counsel at sidebar, please?
I'll show you real quick. Hold on. I brought up a picture of her dad. Right there. That's John's dad and mom. Right there. I don't think I've seen him in court at all. This child. Have you? So that other guy, was that one of his brothers maybe? So that's his mom and dad. Wait, you guys were able to see that, right? Let me make sure. Is that going up on me? Yeah, it's going up on the screen. Okay. And then let me show you. I found like an old picture of. Look how cute he was. Well, yeah, he was. That's the correct term. He was a really cute guy. Look how cute he is. He really was. That's his sister, I guess, that died. Right there. And then here's him when he's kind of younger too. Oh, wait, I should go over here. Okay. Just want to make sure when okay.
May I continue, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. When you were recounting the conversation that Ms. Reed indicated that she was upset about, you also indicated, in addition to using the phrase her last words to him, you also said that it was earlier in the night, correct? they had an argument earlier in the night?
I don't recall.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, take a look at the top paragraph, very, very small print. Let me know when you've refreshed your recollection.
Yes.
Great. May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
You got it.
When you wrote your report, you had indicated that when she was describing the argument that you testified to on direct, it was about an argument that was, quote, earlier in the night.
Earlier in the night, correct.
Okay. And then you recounted that statement, that same statement in the grand jury later on as at least including, quote, her last words. Is that right?
Her last words.
You were talking about an argument that they had, and then she was upset, and you were paraphrasing her. And one of the things that you paraphrased was, in fact, your statement was she was upset that was like her last words to him, correct?
She said that.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Were you also made aware, did she tell you that her last words to him were in voicemails? Did she say that?
She didn't give any details.
Did you ask her, what were your last words to him?
I did not.
Did she ever say whether or not she believed he ever received her last words to him?
There's no other details than, there was no other details other than what she said.
Okay. But she did, when she was having this conversation with you about her last words to him, she did actually take out her phone and show you a bunch of missed calls to him at the same time, didn't she?
She tried to, yes.
Okay. In your mind, did you put two and two together that what she was actually talking about were the missed calls and her being upset about her last words to him, being very angry on those missed calls, those voicemails? Did you put those two things together?
I didn't.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Brennan?
Sir, when Ms. Reed told you that she was sad because her last conversation, or her last thing that she had said to him was an argument, did she ever suggest that was in a voicemail?
Objection.
Did she ever suggest it was in a voicemail?
She did not.
Did she ever suggest that she didn't actually speak to him, but instead it was some type of message?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Did she ever suggest that?
She did not.
In fact, you wrote a report saying that there was an argument earlier in the night, didn't you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You then were interviewed, weren't you? Were you
Yes.
interviewed on February 14th, 2022?
Yes.
And you referred to the fact that she told you there was an argument earlier in the night?
Argument early in the night.
Okay. And she was telling you this when you were speaking to her that morning?
Correct. Around 6 a.m.
Right.
Yes.
And earlier in the night, do you know if she was referring to 12:30
I did not know.
or 12:15
No.
or midnight?
I didn't know the time.
So his answer is he doesn't know.
You testified in the grand jury, and Attorney Jackson just asked you some questions about part of the statement you made to the grand jury when he said, like her last words. Would you like to put that in context of the whole statement you made? Do you remember
her last words?
Do you remember the entire statement that you made in the grand jury about the statement that was made to you?
I'd have to.
May I approach?
Yes.
This is page 81, lines 1 through 4. Please read it to yourself.
Right here, sir.
1 through 4, please.
Yes. Right.
Now, when you made that statement you were asked about in the grand jury, you didn't just say, like her last words, did you?
No.
You explained your memory to the grand jury?
Objection.
Ask him what he told you.
I knew it was going to come because it's
The
delayed.
grand jury, do you know it was on April 21st, 2022?
Yes.
Okay, and did you tell the grand jury? So she.
I'm going to see Council Sidebar for a second, please.
It's delayed. You see him stand up and then you don't hear it for like 3 seconds later. It's funny. Had me tripped up for a minute because the first objection, when I first noticed it was a few minutes ago, and he stood up and it was like really obvious, and you could tell he was talking, and I'm like, what is going on? And then he did it, and then I saw it again where he's like, objection to his mouth, and then it was delayed. And you know what? Now that I think about it, I heard like a noise from the podium, and I was like, whose mic is on? Because it would have been after. You could see Alan when Alan was up there, and it would have been after you seen him moving the podium, like something at the podium, and then I heard the noise, and my head before I noticed the delay, I was like, wonder if they have the audio like on the defense somewhere where he's picking up audio, but it makes sense now. Yeah, it's delayed. No biggie, no biggie, but we know the objections when they're coming up before you can see Alan either stand up or his mouth move.
May I approach?
Yes.
They
They might end up syncing it back up. So
So I'm showing you that
We'll
statement
see.
that you made. That includes last words, but there's more to the statement, isn't there?
She was upset.
I'd like you to read
Oh,
your
sorry.
entire
Sure.
statement, 1 through 5. And read it out loud.
So she was also she was upset also because she said they had, the last time they had talked, she had gotten into an argument. So she was upset that was like her last words to him.
And so when you were speaking about her last words to him, were you referring to the argument?
Correct.
You testified again regarding this issue, didn't you, in May 3rd, 2024?
Correct.
Okay. And at that point, did you think or believe that the conversation she was relating to you was about a voicemail?
Objection.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Did you use the word again on May 3rd, 2024, argument?
Objection.
I'm going to allow this.
I used argument.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Can I ask you to read your prior statement on page 10, lines 9 through 13?
Objection.
I'm going to see you at sidebar again and bring these documents, please. Bring all of it.
Forgot I could fast forward. Yeah. I'll fast forward. There's her parents. So that's her mom, right? I know that's her dad. That's got to be her mom sitting next to her, right? Yeah, his dad's not there. Does he have two brothers? So that's one of his brothers. Was that other guy his other brother, I wonder?
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Sir, when you wrote the report of your notes to put in your report, do you remember the word argument?
I did.
Do you remember her actually saying the word argument?
I did.
Do you remember her ever saying any word about voice messages?
I did not.
You said that there was somebody in the front seat of the car with the defendant,
There was.
and you later learned from the defendant it was a person by the name of Kerry Roberts.
Correct.
Can you share with us the context? How did you learn that?
The defendant and my partner, firefighter Whitley, had a conversation.
Objection. I'm going to allow it.
So the defendant brought up how if her husband had died at the time, she didn't know how she was going to take care of his kids.
Objection. I'm going to allow this.
And firefighter Whitley mentioned that she had like a strong support system. You know, all the friends are on Canton, and
Objection. And reproach. Yes.
Man, I hope they get this synced because that kind of stuff, I don't know why it distracts me and it makes me not be able to focus when like it's like not synced. So the one's synced and the one's not, so we could see ahead of time every time objection, like what 5 seconds ahead of I don't know why that distracts me, like from really paying attention for some reason. I know it's silly, but it does for some reason. Okay, I'll fast forward. Yeah, Becky, I don't know how many brothers he has. I just was guessing. I'll have to look it up, John. I know he for sure has one, but I don't know why I was thinking he had two. I could be totally wrong. Oh, that other guy, he's right there now. That one guy that was sitting next to her before, I think.
When you spoke to the defendant and she shared with you that her last words with her husband were an argument, why didn't you ask for more detail about that?
I didn't feel it was at the time we went about the call as that we didn't think we would be witnesses in a murder trial. We were there to support Karen and ultimately get to the hospital safely.
And you were asked about trauma, and you said that you observed that the person may be in trauma, Ms. Reed.
A traumatic event,
Traumatic event.
Right.
Do you have any idea what caused that traumatic event?
I did not.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Anything?
Very briefly, you indicated that you were asked on redirect examination by Mr. Brennan whether earlier in the night could have been 12 or 12:15 a.m., correct?
That's what he asked, yes.
And earlier in the night could have been 6 o'clock p.m.
Early in the night, yeah, correct.
Could have been 5 o'clock p.m.
Could have been.
Could have been 7 o'clock p.m.
Sure.
Okay. You were also asked whether or not Ms. Reed actually specifically mentioned voicemails when she talked about those last words. And you said she didn't.
That I remember, correct.
But she did show you her phone.
She tried to.
And she did show you a bunch of missed calls to John Keefe, correct?
I wasn't going to look through her phone. I don't know who she called.
Thank you. That's all.
When she said about the argument, she said those were the last words, the argument, right?
That's correct.
Sustained. All right. Jurors, disregard that last statement. All right, you are all set.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Is this a good place to stop for the day?
If the court pleases, yes.
Jurors, we could
For
do
the
6
day?
minutes, but I think this is probably a good place to start.
Wait, for the day?
So, as I understand it, folks, we're on
I'm
schedule
confused.
where we thought we would be. We're going to release you for today. Now, when I told you this morning, and I've told you other times too, that when you were out in that room waiting for us, we're in here getting work done to make things more efficient for the trial, especially a trial this long. We've decided that we're going to spend Monday afternoon again trying to streamline this trial and deal with issues that we have to deal with. So Monday for you will be a half a day. All right, so I just wanted to tell you that before you left today. Please, again, those 3 cautions: do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into
I'm gonna
this
have to
case.
date for 3 days in a row.
Heck. Anything about this case,
I'm mad.
please disregard it, let us know. And I guess the 4th caution is the same as I've been saying. Please be very careful with your social media. All right, have a good weekend. We'll see you Monday morning.
All right, for the board, please.
And I'd like to see counsel at sidebar, please.
Let's see what she says in council. Hold on. This is messed up, dude. That's 3 days in a row. It's been half a day. And now Monday, she's saying another half a day. Why? She's acting like this was a full day. It's 1 o'clock. How is this a full day? I do not get it. She didn't act, she acted like it was like, oh, this is a full day today. What? Let's see what they have to say. We'll watch the rest of that interview together because that was good. But this is making me mad, dude. I was ready for a full day of trial. The heck? I was like prepared. I'm upset. But like I said, stick around. We're going to watch the rest of that interview. It's pretty good. We have like 40 more minutes left of it. It was really good. They can have audio. I found a couple other good pictures of John and his brother and stuff I was going to show too. I'm just cropping them because I screenshot them from my phone, so it does like that whole phone thing. Well, I'm going to crop them and then send them to my email. Are they going to have audio or what? Hold on. They might not. Thought they were gonna have like a little hearing or something. I don't understand. It was like she was acting like, oh, we could just go 6 more minutes. We might as well stop here. But is ignoring the fact that it's only 1:15. Well, I mean, I don't get it. And it is because we're not. I know I started late, but I only started like 20 minutes late, and we're already basically caught up. Look, for 5 minutes, we'd be caught up. So. She did really end it at like 1:15, 1:20. I don't get it. Hold on, I'm gonna put on the interview. It looks like there's not anything else. And I had some of those other videos from yesterday that looked interesting of people talking about the trial. Okay, yeah, it doesn't look like we're gonna be able to hear anything. They're having it on mute. Okay, so I'm gonna play the rest of that interview real quick. I'm upset. It's bull crap. It's bull crap.
U.S. attorney, as far as we know, Leah Foley will be the third U.S. attorney, as far as we know, who will at least touch this case.
Right.
Do you expect that having a new head of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston will change anything?
I don't know. I've been incredibly impressed with the U.S. Attorney's Office in terms of the leadership under Ms. Foley's predecessors. Joshua Levy was central in making certain decisions about what to disclose to us, where the investigation was going. Again, I don't know what the full parameters of the investigation are, but I can say that I was very, very happy with what they did and what they disclosed, trying to get the truth out previously, and I hope Ms. Foley does the same thing. I'm looking forward to her continuing the investigation. I hope she does.
When you look at the scope of the federal investigation and all the things that were done, you received 3,000 pages from that investigation. Are there other things that might have been done or have been done that you think that should also be turned over or could be turned over?
I don't know. Again, Ted, we're sort of operating a little bit in the blind because I don't know what the full contours of the federal investigation consist of. So it's not like I can say, oh, well, they did this, but I don't have that information. I don't know what the this is. The only thing that I have is the information that they provided to both sides. And then we culled through it to decide, oh, okay, is this relevant to our case? And nearly every page of it was highly, highly relevant material.
One of the things that the federal government did was hire this outside accident reconstruction team who would have no vested interest in the outcome of this case. Right. How important was those two accident reconstructionists coming in saying no way, no how?
I cannot describe the gravity of those two witnesses. First of all, they were unassailable in terms of their credibility and their credentials. There was nobody who testified that was more credentialed to talk about the issues that were attendant to them than those two gentlemen, those two doctors, PhDs. The fact that we didn't hire them, they can't be considered hired guns by the prosecution. The fact that the Commonwealth didn't even know their name, they were completely independent third parties who did not know Karen Reed or this case, and they did not know that their assessment was attendant to Karen Reed or this case. Central to their testimony, completely credible. I can't describe the gravity of those two witnesses and the impact that it had on the trial and getting to the truth. And what they said echoed everything that we had been learning during the course of our investigation on the defense side, which is that car was not damaged by hitting a human body. It did not hit a person. And John O'Keefe was not injured by being hit by a vehicle. No way, no how. It didn't happen. As one of the witnesses testified, the physics don't lie. The science doesn't lie. The car did not make contact with John O'Keefe. She didn't do this.
Karen, when the ARCA information came in that document dump, I guess, what was your emotion kind of reading what they decided?
I didn't really know the details of it until trial because I did not have the same access to those materials that the attorneys did because of the federal protective order. It was another moment, and there's been so many, that I realized, to put it mildly, how underhanded this prosecution is, that a district attorney can be privy to that accident reconstruction report and continue to pursue this case and not call Drs. Wolf and Rentschler.
Right, they have one job to do. They have one job to do, to seek the truth. They had this information in front of them. As Karen just said, why wouldn't they call them? They should have called them. Their only job is to seek the truth, not to seek a conviction. And the truth is, the physics don't lie. The car didn't hit John. He wasn't killed by being hit by a car. And they, not only did they not seek that truth, they tried to suppress it.
And their version of events was almost, it was laughable. It was laughable. It was illogical. It just did. The body just landed. The phone just landed. A side swipe with no bruises. It's not as if they had qualified, credentialed, advanced educated experts to counter, to offer another version of events. They didn't have that, and they chose to ignore that, and they chose to present to the court and to the public in a hearing that those federal materials, 3,000 pages, were 90 to 95% consistent with their theory of the case. The theory of the case is a car accident. The federal materials included a report that said there wasn't a car accident. That's the case. That's 95% of the case. And it was inconsistent. It wasn't just inconsistent. It was diametrically opposed to the Commonwealth's theory of the case, or lie of the case.
On the morning of January 29th, 2022, you said it was possible you might have hit John. How could that even be in the realm if you saw him going into the house?
Because it never crossed my mind that the people we were with, middle-aged adults with children, some of the children were with us that night at the bar. It did not cross my mind for several days that they did this to John, that John was treated like a piece of garbage. These were women and men, some I knew better than others, that I knew to be normal people. And I went through every possibility. He was near the road and he was dying. And I didn't think he was purposely put in that place.
In your opinion, there have been a few names that have surfaced in this third-party culpability theory. Who do you think, if John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John. But who it was specifically, others know. And they're not talking.
What is the most important piece of evidence that exists in this case that people could look at and say, hey, there's no way that she could have done this? Is there one thing?
To me, there is. That the only physical evidence connecting me to where John's body was found, which I will not call the crime scene, The only physical evidence, pieces of plastic taillight, were not found until after the state police had possession of that very taillight.
And when you couple that, you're looking for one thing. When you couple that with the testimony of the experts, the third party, absolutely qualified experts, that there was no car accident. The car did not hit John, and John was not hit by a car.
So the taillight pieces, when they were found and when your car was taken, to you, that is the most crucial element of your defense.
It's closely followed by other evidence, but to me, yes.
You've had a private investigator from the start. Is that private investigator still running down tips, and will we see any new revelations at the retrial?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have not slowed down our investigation one iota. So I expect, I'm not at liberty to say exactly what might be revealed that's new and different in the second trial, but I expect there will be some new information that comes from our investigation as well.
People send you tips?
All the time. All the time. Yeah, the harder part is not getting the tips. The harder part is separating the wheat from the chaff.
Mm-hmm.
What tips are valuable enough to sort of chase down, and which just seem like we'd be chasing our tail. But no, we get tips every single day. The public is very, very interested in getting to the truth of what actually happened to John O'Keefe.
Karen, it's been reported that your defense is running about $5 million. Is that correct? And how do you pay for that?
Give or take a few million. That's a back of the envelope calculation, and it's certainly no pressure put on me in any way by my attorneys. The longer this goes, the harder they work, the more time goes into it.
How do you pay for that?
Right now, I'm paying for everything entirely on the charity of supporters. People I know, former colleagues, people, many, thousands of people I don't know. I've liquidated my retirement. I've sold my home, and everything else is from supporters, and it's not a small number. It's approaching $750,000, and I hope the supporters and the donors know that this is their defense. They're marshaling this. I could early, but it's been 3 years. I've not had income. I had 2 incomes, now I have none. So I'm just incredibly grateful and appreciative. And it was funny when we launched the defense fund, which Alan helped me do logistically through his firm. I was thanking donors the early days, anything sizable or even small ones, because it's not the nominal amount. It's what people can afford or their intention, and especially from strangers. And I was thanking people, and now I can't, but I just want them to know. I see them all. My family members, my close friends see them, and other supporters see. Our defense fund page has kind of become its own social media, that people look to see what other parts of this country are people closely following and donating to this defense. So it's keeping us going financially, of course, but also emotionally.
It's important to know, not to interrupt, Ted, but it's important to know that although the attorney time involved is in the multi-million-dollar range, probably $6 million between Mr. Yannetti, myself, Ms. Little, other lawyers who have worked on the case, other individuals, investigators, et cetera. Most of us, all of the lawyers, are not getting paid that. We have not taken that money. We're not going to take that money. That's the value that has amassed of the legal services that's been required to mount this defense. But we're not taking the money because she doesn't have the money. And the reason that David Yannetti is doing this, the reason that I'm doing this, the reason that Liza Little is doing this, the reason that Marty Weinberg and Bob Alessi and others are doing this is because it's the right thing to do. None of us are willing to stand by and watch her get railroaded or steamrolled by the power of the government when she did not do this. So we have all decided as a team, We will be here for as long as it takes, and we will fight as hard as it takes to make sure that the truth comes out.
You said you received $750,000 roughly in donations. Who would we be most surprised to hear who's donated to you?
I wouldn't disclose that to you, but some well-known, maybe one of the most well-known names at my former employer. But as I said, that means just as much to me as someone from Alabama who's given me $25 from her last paycheck.
Does that person's name start with an A?
No, he was, it's a he. And just a little more directly involved.
That's just good. That's just good reporting. He's just going to keep asking until,
Yeah.
until he figures it out.
Abby certainly has the money.
I wish, Ted, I wish. And that's not for lack of trying on my part.
The largest group of people who've donated to you are your former coworkers.
Not in volume of donors, but in proportion of the actual amount donated. Yeah, about half has come from former colleagues to whom I'm incredibly grateful. And it's kind of taken the sting out of no longer being a part of that world and seeing them every day and doing what I love to do, that I'm still connected, and it's a different life that I have now and a different purpose, and they're contributing to it.
And it's interesting, the perception that she's got this multi-million-dollar defense and this juggernaut defense. It's just not correct. It's not accurate. Yes, she has a very valuable defense working on her behalf, but the money that the donors and the public are providing, the money that that's being given to the defense fund is paying for the investigators, the expert witnesses, travel for the experts, hotels for the people are flying in from all over the country, and we have to account for that, a massive amount of logistics, getting people here so that they can testify, getting people here so that they can do the research. If we need to use research attorneys or other staff, that's what that's paying for. It's not paying for legal fees. None of us are taking legal fees.
For the retrial, you're facing a new special prosecutor. Who would you rather face? Is it Adam Lally, who we saw in the first trial, or is it Hank Brennan?
I don't care who I face. I have the truth. I have the best attorneys that money is not paying for. Do your worst.
What was your take on how the DA's office performed at the first trial?
How they performed, it felt like they just wore the jury down. It felt like a lot of repetition. I don't think the jurors saw the lack of injuries to John's body or his right arm for, I want to say it was week 5, but maybe it just felt like week 5 and it was week 3. They were clearly, and I understand why, belaboring insignificant points and barely touching on the biggest parts of the evidence.
Questions that they couldn't answer. They just decided the prosecution had a design. They were just going to try the case by volume instead of by validity.
Put it all out there.
Put everything out there. And the inconvenient facts that show that John O'Keefe was not killed by Karen Reed would just get buried somewhere in the middle. Our job was to tease that out, which we did. Doesn't matter if they try to do it again. We'll do the same thing. Our job is to make sure that the truth gets out there.
I think I asked your parents the same question. If you're framed, someone's got to run that, direct that. Who is that person?
I think you know who that person is. I think there's people who are enabling, and there's people who are actually moving pieces.
But is your theory that it's people inside that house, 34 Fairview, who sort of called the shots from the beginning, or someone high up in law enforcement?
I don't know the interconnections, the interpersonal relationships among these people. I have a strong personal opinion that what has motivated this persecution of me is power. There were familiarities among players that never should have happened. There's a sleeve of homicide in the Norfolk DA's office, as there is in the other counties of Massachusetts. And yet the person assigned to investigate this case, ostensibly investigate this case, lives a mile down the street from the crime scene. But I believe the players with the most influence are motivated more by power and playing God. And they're trying to play God with my life.
Not to protect people.
People are being protected. I don't know if the motivation was actually to protect those people, but it's a byproduct of it. I mean, there are names, and we know those names, that were hidden from me. I only knew who was in that house from the rumor mill, from people I knew in Canton, and it ended up becoming true once we pushed and filed motions and flew the team in. And 2 years later, a year and a half later, we're getting police reports of names of people that were in that house that I did not know about, or they were trying to make sure I didn't know about early in 2022.
And you can't have one without the other. You can't have a motivation to put the case on Karen Read without also being motivated to protect yourself or to protect others that are with you. It would take a real investigation, a true investigation by their own folks to reveal who is part of this. Is there one person that's behind it? I don't think so. My personal opinion. I think it's a combination of folks. But I don't think that we're ever going to see that true investigation because the people that are in power don't want the truth.
But isn't that what the feds did?
That's ostensibly what the feds did and are continuing to do. I don't know the full contour of what the federal investigation is revealing, but I can certainly say that, to Karen's point, there were people that were never disclosed to us in any reports being in that home that weren't revealed until the federal investigators got involved and some folks started getting cornered. And they realized, oh, hang on, I can't suppress this anymore. There are reasons why I have to now reveal this truth. And then ultimately it was revealed. Why is that? Why were folks being hidden from us in police reports, et cetera, as being in the house, as being pertinent to this investigation? They didn't do anything. Who the hell cares?
Do we know who all those people are now? Were they all part of the first trial?
We think we do.
Yeah, at least we think we do.
And by the way, Ted, I think it's probably half of the people that were in 34 Fairview, half of what we think the total number is, were interviewed for the first time with their defense attorneys, with their criminal defense attorneys. What a luxury. What a luxury. Some were interviewed in the first week of this case, the week following John's murder, in their attorneys' homes. Others were interviewed the fall of 2023 in their defense attorneys' offices. Convenient, and what a luxury.
And I've never seen that before either. We were talking earlier about things that are anomalous, an anomaly about this case. I've never seen that before, where like the entire panoply of eyewitnesses, supposedly eyewitnesses for the government, they'll lawyer up immediately. They're all interviewed with lawyers sitting there. Why? If you're just telling the truth, what do you need to lawyer up for?
Do you think it's just because of the exposure of this case, though?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's self-preservation.
Will you bring any new witnesses to the retrial? Will we see anyone new at the retrial from your side?
I think a lot of that depends on what we get from the Commonwealth. We're still waiting to get the full bucket of information that the Commonwealth is amassing for the second trial. But as soon as they let us know what their witness list looks like, then that will dictate in no small part what our witness list is going to look like. But I fully expect that there will be some
in the
new
bullpen.
witnesses. Yeah, we're not waiting on that. We're pretty good at figuring out that we can telegraph their punches. So we have not been sitting on our hands. I can put it that way. And will you see new faces? Yes, I expect you will.
We're 3 years removed from what happened, And you said that you're still receiving important evidence from the state. Why wouldn't have that been turned over for the first trial?
Because it's exculpatory.
That's the question we've been asking. Why wasn't this turned over during the first trial? And you probably will see that question posed in a formal motion that we will have before the court, before the trial starts. Because that's the right question to ask. Why the hell? You've been prosecuting this case for 3 years. We should have had every scrap of information available to you in our possession before the first trial. We have now learned that did not happen.
Karen, can you give me an example of something that you haven't?
Nope.
Well, the CPD video was just publicized. It's in a
Yeah,
public motion.
this isn't the place to talk about it. We're about to have a hearing on it. So I'd rather just.
This isn't going to
defer
air
that.
though till after.
But she'll probably be not deciding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. She might not decide it for weeks or months. So I'd rather defer that question.
You've asked the state's highest court to intervene and essentially dismiss the murder charge. How closely do you follow the decisions that come out every day from that court?
We pretty much take the pulse of that docket every day.
Mm-hmm.
We're very interested. We think that we have nothing but the deepest respect for the SJC. One of the beauties of the appellate court process is that the more elevated the courts go, the less associated they are with the local issues that are attendant to a particular prosecution, a particular courtroom, a particular subject matter. So they're by design supposed to be elevated to a point where they can just look at something antiseptically, look at it legally and factually, and make a decision. We're looking very, very forward to the SJC reviewing, ultimately making a decision about, and then coming out with a holding concerning the acquittal of Karen on count 1 and count 3, the murder charge and the leaving the scene with injury charge. And when they do come out with that holding, my hope is that it's in our favor.
So wait a minute, that might answer my question. They still can have something going on, even if because they're already, this is only 2 months ago. Well, I know it aired 2 months ago. That doesn't mean it was, but they're already preparing for the retrial, right? Plus they're still waiting for the appeal stuff from the first trial. So I wonder, let's say she does get found guilty, knock on wood, I don't want that to happen, but let's say she does on this. I wonder if there's still something going on for the acquittal from the first trial, if that could still happen because of the retrial. I hope it doesn't negate like, oh, they did a retrial, so you can't do any appeals on the first trial. Because I feel like the first trial, there's a lot that could happen now because of the jury tampering, which I wasn't even aware of. The jury confusion where they said that they acquit her. Basically, they were unanimous about the second-degree murder, which she shouldn't be allowed to be charged of that if that's true. So I just wonder if they still are able to do something now that, oh, they denied it. Okay. So they don't have anything to go on? I have to look that up. I want to see the paperwork on that. So I just wonder, though, if they could do anything, though, now that the retrial, if they have any say on the first trial. Does that make sense since there's a retrial? Sucks. I hope, because it seems like there's a lot of crap going on. Anyway.
Should be in our favor. We deeply believe legally that it will be in Karen's favor, and that will change the complexion of the second trial significantly.
Karen, aside from the DA's office dropping the charges against you, which is not going to happen, is the SJC decision your best hope?
If the SJC rules in our favor, that'd be a big win. But day to day, Ted, we don't plan on that. Hope for the best, expect the worst. One benefit to the SJC, to the appeal, to the affidavits submitted on behalf of the jurors that reached out to Alan and David, is it will hold a magnifying glass over the verdict, over the governing of the jurors, the logistics of it. So that's something we weren't expecting at the first trial. Things that were going on with the jury we had issues with the verdict slip at the 11th hour. So this has helped us sort that out in advance of the second trial. So it has served a purpose, even if it's not the best outcome with the SJC.
So the jurors that came forward said that they found you not guilty on second-degree murder, but they were stuck on manslaughter. Why is that? Why do you think that there were people in that box that said, no, we believe Karen struck John?
Actually, I believe, and part of this is a little guesswork and filling in blanks, but the jurors that came forward indicated that they weren't actually even stuck on manslaughter. They were stuck on a subordinate charge beneath manslaughter, which means by definition, they were instructed you have to find not guilty on manslaughter to even go to a subordinate charge. So as it stands, as we sit here today, the information that we have is that she was acquitted on count 1, acquitted on count 3, acquitted on the upper charge of count 2, and they were stuck on something lesser like a DUI or DUI with injury or something like that.
But that would still mean that there were people in that box who thought Karen hit John.
I think that I don't think so, Ted. I don't believe that that's true. I believe that there were people, I think that we dispatched that notion in trial to the nth degree. I don't believe that there were actually jurors in the box who believed that the Commonwealth had proved beyond any and all reasonable doubt that she struck John with her car. I think what they thought was there is a tragic situation, a tragic outcome. A man lost his life, and that is tragic. It's deeply tragic for John, his family. And that there was drinking going on, drinking by Brian Albert, and drinking by Brian Higgins, drinking by Chris Albert, everybody, including Karen Reed. And she's the one on trial. Given the fact that there was drinking going on and someone lost their life, I think that there were certain people on the jury who just decided, I don't want to say not guilty across the board. Let's find something lesser to see if we can do something to close that loop for John O'Keefe. I don't think it had really intellectually anything to do with Karen Reed actually striking John O'Keefe.
Karen, would you like to see this case tried somewhere else? Moved out of Norfolk County, moved out of Massachusetts?
I'm not afraid of this case being tried in Norfolk County. I'm agnostic.
In terms of picking a jury for the next trial, I mean, it was a challenge the first time around. How the heck do you do it this time?
We're not looking for jurors that haven't heard about the case. That's going to be impossible. We're looking for jurors that haven't formed an opinion about the case, which is possible. And they may have, I know there are people in the jury pool that have maybe heard about the case tangentially or know my face or passed by it on the dial, but don't really know the evidence. I'm optimistic that those people exist and they'll hear the evidence and they'll see the truth. But I believe people in Norfolk County, I've seen it, and I'm not from Norfolk County. I didn't live there. I wasn't raised there, but they're smart and savvy and they're passionate. And when they do hear about the case, most of my supporters, I would guess, are from Norfolk County proportionately, and they're intelligent. They see this for what it is by following the evidence really closely. So I just need jurors that'll do that. I haven't done it yet, but will be willing to do that.
You've spoken at length about this case and the circumstances that have happened. Why not take the stand?
I am not saying that I am not taking the stand. I felt confident in our case, in our defense, because a lot of our case was our cross-examination of these witnesses. And we made a game time decision, and I take the advice of my attorneys, but I'm not afraid of taking the stand. And I'm clearly not afraid of speaking, but I will not assign any genuine, truthful intentions to the prosecution. And I've already seen signs they're playing hardball. So we'll weigh the pros and cons, and we'll make another second game time decision.
Do you think that this is personal for the DA's office, that they want a conviction more than probably any conviction they've ever gotten before?
Yes.
And there are certainly people involved with the prosecution who want exactly that. I would venture to say there's not a single person in the Commonwealth at the prosecution level. I don't think there's a single person at the investigative level with the law enforcement who actually believes in their heart that they can prove this case against Karen beyond any and all reasonable doubt. I don't think that there's a soul at the prosecution involved with the prosecution that believes that. Not a soul. I believe this is more a trial of a vendetta, of personal animus, of trying to save face. I don't think anybody there, honestly, put him down, strap him to a lie detector. You think you can prove this case beyond any reasonable doubt that Karen Read did this? Nope, I don't think so. So yeah, I think there's a lot of personal interest and personal animus that has gotten in the way of the prosecution and the Commonwealth doing their duty, their sworn duty, not to prosecute someone unless they believe they can do so to a jury, an objective jury of her peers, beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't think any one of them think that.
Karen, is it your understanding that nobody in the Norfolk DA's office would try this case, and that's why they went to Hank Brennan?
We've heard rumors to that effect, and it was from some of the same people that told us Hank Brennan was being recruited within weeks of the mistrial. So I lend some credence to those rumors, but they're just rumors. And also, no one in the DA's office is trying this case for the retrial.
This case has become your identity. Is that for the rest of your life? Or will one day you just want to put it all behind you?
I don't think I can, even if I wanted to. And I'm okay with that. It's more important, this fight, than anything I've done by a wide margin. And it's made me realize that this happens all the time. And I'm just fortunate enough to be able to fight back. But what's happened to me has happened too easily, too swiftly, with seemingly no checks and balances other than the ones we can bring, that this can't be the first, it can't be the first time. And it's 2025 in Massachusetts, and it's happening right before everyone's eyes. It's hiding in plain sight. So this is a problem that I hope I'm here to address. And even if I'm not, it will be addressed. We're doing it right now. Regardless of the outcome, which will be an acquittal, eyes have been opened. That's why Alan and I are sitting here, is there's interest, and people are evaluating their law enforcement and their elected officials and their district attorneys with a more critical eye than they were before. And that's a bigger impact and a purpose that I could have, even if
I'll
it's
stop
been
it.
very.
Hold on. I'm trying to screenshot something really quick. Just give me 1 minute. For some reason, it makes the other, oh shoot, it makes the other side freeze. There's nothing wrong. Oh, look how dude, that's scary how I paused it. But just give me 1 second, because I'm trying to screenshot something that I want to read, and it's not letting me download it, so I have to freaking do it this way. So just give me 1 minute. Stupid, it won't let me download it, so screw it. I'm just gonna screenshot it then. Oh shoot, that one cut off. Hold on, guys. I'll play this until I
very difficult for me and the people that are closest to me.
Something that the prosecution has recently been focused on were calls you made to your mother overnight. What were those calls about?
Anyone who spent any time with me throughout my life knows I'm incredibly close to my parents. And I was very troubled to put it. You've heard the voicemails. It was a blizzard. There were young children unattended. And John, uncharacteristically, and when I say uncharacteristically, I mean he's never done that before at that hour in those conditions. And I was panicked. I was torn between, did something go wrong, or is he purposely ignoring me and taking advantage of me to go home to the kids while he stay out drinking? And as I
Annoying. Just give me 1 second, guys. I just have a couple more pages, and then I'll finish it. Just a screenshot. I got 5 more pages. Instead of being annoying and it stopping. This interview is really good, though. I can't believe I didn't see it. It's been up for 2 months. Has anybody not seen it? Or am I the only one? I tried to ask it earlier, but I didn't get really. I don't think anybody answered. Or maybe you did and I just missed it. Put a 1 if you've seen it and a 2 if not. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. Oh, shoot. Hold on. Makes me wait after. I missed it. Okay. There you go. I got 2 more pages. Oh, this is the last page. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And then that one, I guess I didn't need it. Okay. I'll read a part of it whenever.
And do I wish I did it less? Yes, but now I need her more than ever, as I normally would do. I'd reach out to my mother for, what do you think's happening? And I, reach out to them every day now that night just, it's like I never woke up from it. So
I think the fact that the prosecution seems to be focusing on those calls and trying to wrap Karen's parents into this just shows a level of desperation that shows or suggests that the prosecution understands how thin, paper thin, chiffon thin their case is. They can't prove this case, and so they're just sort of desperately looking to scattershot other information to make innuendo about why would she call her mother. Like, she calls her parents all the time. There's no.
Wait, they were making us think about her calling her mom?
Doesn't mean that
why?
The prosecution isn't going to look and make
Why is that
suggestions
even-
about it, but
That's
it's
stupid.
a desperate ploy, and
Yeah,
there's
it
nothing there.
is.
What would surprise me or the people watching this about something that's transpired over the last 3 years?
I don't think so. I think one of the things that we've tried to do on the defense team from the beginning is pull that veil back, pull the curtain back, and show all the warts and blemishes of the Massachusetts State Police, the Canton Police Department, the investigative techniques that they used or didn't use, the Commonwealth's prosecution of a case like this. We wanted everybody to see everything. And we were pretty successful in that in terms of the presentation in front of the first jury. We intend to do it again in front of the second jury. So the thing that's most shocking is the full universe of information that now the community has in front of it. We have gotten call after call after call, email after email, text after text from community members who don't know us, certainly don't know me. I'm from California, saying, this kind of thing happened to my family. This kind of thing happened to me. This kind of thing happened to my son. This kind of thing happened to my father, my mother. And nobody would ever look at it. Nobody would believe us. Nobody would listen. Thank God you folks have found the platform to show what actually is happening in our community. That's what has been most surprising. And it's there for everybody to see.
What is your relationship with Adam Lally and Hank Brennan? Is it cordial?
there's no relationship.
I mean, you have to deal with them back and forth.
Not her.
Not me.
Okay. Your relationship with Hank Brennan?
Completely professional.
Okay.
Cordial, civil, professional. And that's all I expect. If he's going to prosecute this case, the only thing I expect from him is professionalism, which he has given me. It doesn't get, at least with me and with David and with Liza, it doesn't get personal. We deal with what we need to deal with in the courtroom.
Was that the same way with Adam Lally?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, by and large. By and large. I disagree vehemently, vigorously with their prosecution of this case. Yeah. They know that. I haven't made that, that is out there. But in terms of just day-to-day interaction, I expect the highest level of professionalism from them, and they get it from us.
It's business.
It's business.
State police have had people follow your drivers?
Yep. Our drivers have been approached by the state police. They're no longer well, some are no longer my drivers because of that. I've had very close friends, had their cell phone records subpoenaed for an indictment that never happened. There's a lot of attempts to glean more about our team by the state police. There's probably, I wouldn't put it past them to, something's going on as I'm sitting here.
Have you ever been followed?
I don't know. My eyes are akimbo all the time. I look at law enforcement differently, more warily. I don't know that I'm being followed. I've been tracked. I mean, I've been tracked on flights. I've been tracked when I've stayed in hotels. This is in.
How do you know you're being tracked?
I know from affidavits from the state police at the Norfolk DA's office when they were investigating me last year. I was with my closest friend trying to get away from Massachusetts, and little did I know at the time, I learned about it afterwards, that they knew what flight I was on, they knew when I landed, they knew when I came back, and it's disturbing. It's invasive, and it's desperate.
Getting back to sort of just distilling, what is the one thing in this case that you believe proves your innocence?
John's body, no bruise, 6,000 pound, full-size SUV, not a bruise on his body, not a fracture below his head.
The
Not a
medical
broken bone.
examiner did not rule his death a homicide, correct?
Broken bones are usually one of the most common injury of getting hit by a car, and it's usually below, like legs, even arms, I guess, but like legs, you know what I'm saying, below the waist and stuff. Not a single injury, no broken bones or anything. That's the huge thing that influences me, is the injuries. The injuries just don't match up, you know? I mean, even if you know, you could get past like, okay, he fell and hit his head for the blunt force trauma. And somehow just disregard the weird injuries on his arm. Where are the broken bones? Where are the injuries to like his lower half if he got hit by a car? You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, it's just, it's crazy.
Correct.
Was it undetermined?
Yes.
And that doesn't get revisited, correct?
Oh, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck trying to revisit that. I don't think it'll be revisited by her. I mean, she came to the decision she came to the decision of. Right. So I don't think
Wait,
she's
what?
gonna,
I missed
she's
it.
not going to. And if she does
Revisit what? I missed that. Shoot.
Revisited, correct? Was it undetermined?
Yes.
Death, a homicide, correct?
Correct.
Was it undetermined?
Yes.
And that doesn't get revisited, correct?
Oh, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck trying to revisit that. I don't think it'll be revisited by her. I mean, she came to the decision she came to the decision of. Right. So I don't think she's not gonna. And if she does deviate from that decision, she's gonna have to answer for that, and that will be an incredibly uncomfortable situation. I don't think that will happen, but it's very telling that their own best expert, as it pertains to the physical evidence surrounding John and John's injuries, did not rule this a homicide. And they have the burden of proof. That's one of the galling factors in this entire thing, is the Commonwealth knows that their own expert or experts will not support their prosecution of Karen. Then dismiss the case. Do the right thing. Just do the right thing. And it's shocking that they won't.
John's niece and nephew, who he was taking care of, essentially testified against you in the trial. How hard was that?
I knew that was coming because I read what they testified to in the initial indictment almost 3 years ago. And they're part of a well that was poisoned almost as soon as he died. And they were 3 years younger then and impressionable and surrounded by adults that care for them and provide for them. And I was no longer one of those adults. and it's unfortunate, and I hope and wish for the best for them, but I've long come to terms with what's happened to the children.
Has Paul O'Keefe ever made any statements to you walking by or anything?
He sends me, he hasn't in a while, but he's attempted to send me Facebook messages. It's ironic because there's a stay away order, and yet I hear, they've attempted to send me messages, and as soon as I see the name comes up, I just delete it. I'm not interested in anything he has to say to me.
What do you think might be the tenor of those messages?
Negative, volatile. I mean, there was some volatility in court, and I think I'd attribute the same cause to Paul's emotions as I would to the children's.
Can you feel him staring at you?
I honestly don't even know he's there anymore. I mean, I'm aware that his immediate family's in the courtroom, but there's days that, we come home from hearings or we came home from court, and someone close to me will say, "Was that so-and-so on the O'Keefe side?" And I said, I honestly, I almost look through them at this point. I know they're there, and my family would be there. My family is there. But the O'Keefe's presence, Paul sitting there, doesn't impact me, it doesn't bother me. That's John's brother. But I couldn't tell you from one day to the next what color shirt he was wearing.
If you were framed, who's calling the shots? There's so many levels there, right? There's the troopers on the ground, there's the prosecutors, there's the DA.
That's the problem is this is just us talking, but that's the problem with answering that question or trying to narrow that question. And she can answer it whichever way she wants to, but it can't be one. It's not one person. It's just not, there's not a singular tip of the spear.
Do you want to, I mean, if that's
it's my opinion.
Yeah. I want to hear you, obviously.
I just want to add to that. I already answered it very pointedly, but there's a garbage in, garbage out problem that forensic scientists or civilians or even local law enforcement that's assisting the investigators, their output and their determinations are only as good as what they're given, what they're testing, what they're measuring, what they're photographing. So I don't believe it's necessarily 40 different people, but I think it's garbage in, garbage out.
This is the picture they say was shortly after. I don't know. I mean, I heard somebody say it was like a month after, which would his injury still be there a month? I would like to know exactly when, how far after, but you could see on his knuckles. So wait, I hate these flipped camera situations where sometimes you can't really tell if it's the right or left side. I hate that because you don't know what they're using, what picture they're using. Sometimes it's flipped, sometimes it's not. And when it's flipped, like you can't, I'm sorry, but you can't tell, I can't. So is this his right or left hand? I mean, it appears it's his right hand, which since most of John's injuries were on his left side or right side, they think that it would have been from left side. Wait, hold on. Yeah. They were thinking of left hand, so it'd be the left side. That's right. Oh, wait, I'm doing this wrong. Whatever side, oh my God, I'm getting all mixed up. But wait, I could see hitting him either way could be on either side though. Really? Now that I'm thinking about left or right, I mean, even if you hit him with your right hand, because you could hit him like on the right side. Also, you could hit him I could see you hitting them both, right? Even with the right hand, I could see you hitting both sides of the body. Huh. But they're talking about the injuries being on one side, which would make the person being left-handed. So it would be on his left side because if you're facing, I think all the injuries was on his left side. But really, I don't think that would necessarily would happen. But you could see like the picture where you see both of his eyes, and you heard I think it was his EMT yesterday or the day before, where they said both eyes were bruised and swollen and bleeding. I mean, you could see there's a picture that you could see with blood coming out both eyes. His eyes are both swollen on both sides. So, and then remember the guy that was on the stand, I forget if it was yesterday or the day before, he tried to make it seem like, well, that could happen from, both eyes can swell from the blunt force trauma to the back of the head, right? Or no, wait, shoot, he might have said from the one on the front. Now I forget what he said, which he gave a reason why the other side could have swelled from, I don't know, but they both were swollen. They're like black and blue, both eyes. But like it was his, wait, was it his right or, hold on a second. Now I'm getting confused though. Which side did they say his injuries were? Because that's his right arm. So with his right side, yeah. So why are they saying the person has to be left-handed? I don't, because it's his right side that had injuries, right? I disagree with either or. Like, I disagree that only you have to be hit with one side to get a side of an injury, because it depends on how the person's moving and where you hit them. Because now when I'm trying to think, okay, the person has to be left-handed, so what side does that make John's injuries? I'm having trouble figuring that out, because I feel like either side could get hit. I guess they're saying the left. I guess they're saying the right side. He says his injuries on the right side, and they're saying the person would have to been left-handed. But I don't see how I even got it mixed up where I said it would, like when I was thinking about fighting, I got it opposite. So I don't think it's that clear cut on which side the injuries would be. I really don't. I mean, you guys could disagree, but when you're fighting, I mean, you're moving around. You're not necessarily going to be squared off head to head where it's perfect. You guys are perfectly facing each other. So your hand is, you know what I'm saying? You're moving, you're trying to get away from each other. You're ducking, you're trying to hit. You could be hitting on either side. So I don't really agree with that. Anyway. Yeah. To watch this. What two, Special Reborn? What two are you talking about? Yeah, exactly, Cicely. It's a brawl. It's not like you're not going to have these perfect injuries. I was just having trouble when I was picturing fighting. I was just thinking it had to be on this left side. That's why it's not as clear cut. Because when I'm picturing two people fighting, I was like, okay, if you're left-handed, I don't know. I got it confused a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I guess I could see because they're saying it right injuries, you have to be left-handed but no. Because obviously these right here are not from punching. You know what I'm saying? Those aren't from like a punching. So, yeah. That's obviously from something else if you're trying to compare. So, yeah, he had black eyes on both sides, so whatever. So that's not. But they're talking about the knot on his head, I guess, and then he had he even had bruising on his hand, on his right hand, John. He had like a bruise on his hand, like almost like he hit something, punched, fight. It's like a bruise on the hand. So, it's weird. Yeah, right. The brawls don't happen like that. You're ducking, you could be on the ground laying on one side, they could be kicking you on the other. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that John was standing up straight. If it was like a bunch of people on him, he could have been on the ground. He could have been like squatting down. I mean, it could have been anything. He could have been squatting down more where his right side was like up and more exposed. You know what I'm saying? So it's just that argument means crap to me when I hear that about the injuries being on one side. Because what if he was, obviously it would have been one guy against a bunch. So what if he like got down on the ground, he got hit on the ground, and he's like this on the ground, and his right side is exposed? What about that? So all the injuries would be on the right side because the ground would be on the left. You know what I'm saying? There could have been so many different circumstances that why he had more injuries to the right side. The real question is why didn't he have any broken bones or fractures if he was hit by a car? Also, these injuries right here, and then the bruise on his hand. I think that's the real question. Anyway, all right, let me take these down. Just watch the rest. Oh, this is almost over. This was a heck of a good interview. I learned a lot about the first trial I did not know, like about behind the
5, 10 years from now, where is Karen Reed? What is she doing?
I don't know what I'll be doing, but I'll be busy, whatever I'm doing. And I care and I think more about whom will I be with. And God willing, it's my parents and the people who've seen me through this. And I hope to meet more of the people that are helping to pull our team through.
Do you have the capacity to find someone new one day, or has that all just been destroyed by all of this?
No, it's not destroyed. I didn't do anything wrong. And I cared for someone and he cared for me. And it ended tragically. And tragic things happen to relationships every day, to 67 relationships, or exponential this morning or last night. So I will not be permanently broken. I'm not broken temporarily. I've just been sidelined from what I thought I was doing on this planet, and it wasn't what I thought I was supposed to be doing. But
she'll get into something.
There's been no irreparable damage to me or what I want out of life or what I want to make me happy.
Did you always know that you had this strength?
I could not have known that I could deal with what I'm dealing with, but I've never been deterred by anything in my life. And I have had challenges, not quite as big as this, but health challenges that severely incapacitated me and ruined my physical quality of life. This is more of a mental obstacle now, but I'm invigorated by challenges. It makes me feel stronger to overcome things. And I think part of the reason I can adapt to this new normal I'm in is because I've had to do it before. And I've been strengthened by the events in my life that brought me to 2022.
The hundreds of thousands of people who might be watching this, what would you like to say to them?
Thank you to the vast majority of them. And like I've said earlier, only people very close to me knew the truth for a very long time, living day to day without a job, without anything to really focus on but this case, and know that even my neighbors who I could see out my window didn't really know the circumstances. And to have hundreds of thousands hear this and be enlightened is just a massive relief. And the support that people come up to me, to my family. Alan and I had a meal paid for in the North End, and it was, I don't know the last time I've done anything but tip a waiter. And that generosity, that's all helping fuel this. It helps me spiritually, and it helps me financially, and I want to thank the vast majority of those people.
So, what was I gonna say? Oh, this probably changed her trajectory of what she wants to do with her life. Like, let's say, even if she happens to go to jail, she'll probably do some kind of work in there to help people, corruptness, or help people get out of situations like this. But I feel like if she does, hopefully they come back with an innocent, I feel like she's going to get in this line of work somehow, legal stuff, or to help people that in these situations and stuff, to fight against corruption. I don't know, something like that, I bet. Because Alan talking about how she probably just found really her calling with that stuff, with how she's able to pick out these. Dude, she could go to law school, but maybe just even help in a different way with that kind of stuff. It's a problem. Maybe. Okay, so I wanted to, I found that court document with the Supreme Court. I was going to read some of it, probably not all of it, but I just wanted to read some of it. Just exit out of that. Yeah, this is what I was watching. The behavior panel. They did a new one on Karen. That's the second one they did on her. I'm gonna have to finish watching it, but okay. So I just wanted to hold on. Let me bring this up real quick. Oh, there's a couple more pictures I found of him and his sister. I wanted to show of like him and his brother and sister. So it looks like he only did have one brother. Here's him and Karen. Oh, it's going back. Wait, why does that go? Every time I scroll, it goes the opposite way. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I showed these with John's dad and mom, which is we were trying to figure out where his dad and mom are, or his dad. It's John and his sister, I guess. I don't know why it scrolled backwards. Here's the one that we should have scrolled to. Him and his brother. His brother and his mom, and then John. Here's him and his parents. How young! Oh my gosh. That's him and his sister and his brother. So that's all three of them. And him. Okay. So I just want to show you those real quick. Okay. So then I wanted to come over here and this right here. Read a little bit of it at least. Memorandum of decision in court order on defendant's motion to dismiss. So on June 9th, 2022, Norfolk County Grand Jury indicted Karen Reed on charges of murder, second degree, manslaughter while operating under the influence of alcohol and leaving the scene of personal injury and death following the death of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. The defendant is pursuing a third-party culprit defense, arguing that one or more persons attending a social gathering at the home, John O'Keefe, I think this is the new one. Let me make sure this is the one after because maybe they asked for it before the first one. Hold on, let's see. The defendant now moves to dismiss the indictments against her on the grounds that the Commonwealth presentation of evidence impaired the integrity of the grand jury proceeding. No, shoot, this is before the trial. Sorry. Shoot, I gotta find the new one. Sorry, I thought I had the new one. Not the new one, but the newer one. Yeah, I won't read this, but. I swear when I was skimming it, it said something. I thought I caught something where it looked like it was. Oh, well. I'll find it later. Maybe I'll read it during one of the breaks of the trial. I did it so quick while I was watching that. I just got the wrong one. It's interesting too, but I mean, this is stuff we all know. They try to dismiss it before it started because of all this corruption and all this crap that we all know now. But that certificate was blunt. Here we go. So there we go. Trooper Proctor testified that the cause of death listed on the death certificate was blunt impact injuries of the head and hypothermia. Somebody was asking that. Cicely, was it you or Hope G or somebody? And that's what that's what I said. Blunt force trauma and hypothermia is what they're saying. Anyway, all right. Sorry, guys. Great. I just wasted my time though on this, getting this screenshot in every one, and it's not even the one I wanted. Oh well. At least I got it from my records. Anyway, all right, guys. I am gonna go. Thanks for watching. Guess see you Monday. Oh yeah, you guys could you tell, was she saying it was gonna start late or end early? She said it was gonna be a half a day. They were gonna streamline it more or whatever that meant. like they did today, but they didn't start late today. The only reason they started on pretty much on time, it looked like, but they just freaking went to the viewing. So what does that mean? After, like, it is end or okay, that's what I was thinking. But wasn't that weird that she was acting like that they didn't even end early today? She was acting like it was like normal time. She's like, oh, only got 6 minutes, so instead we're gonna just end now. But it was way more than 6 minutes early. Why was she acting like it wasn't early? Unless do they always end at 2 on Friday or something, or 1:30 on Friday? Is that what it is? Maybe Friday is always an early day. I don't know. I didn't watch it live last time, so I don't know. No, I know. I'm not saying that. I was just saying she acted like it wasn't early. That's all. Anyway. All right. Bye, guys.